Colleen Hoover was the biggest book talk author for a long time, but she has now fallen from grace for many different reasons. Now when people talk about her books on Book Talk, they're normally talking about the poor writing quality and the insanity in most of them. This left many people saying they will never read a Colleen Hoover book. I used to be one of those people, but for your entertainment, I will not just be reading and reacting to this book. No, I will be recapping this book for you, and that's going to make this whole process take 10 times longer and basically make me read this book twice. But at least now, you have to suffer with me. Well, kind of. You don't actually have to read the book, you just have to listen to me go crazy explaining the book. If you do like watching me lose my mind and recap books, you should go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel, maybe even turn on notifications if you really want to. It really does help me out. Now let's get into what coho book I'm gonna be reading. Coho, because that's what all the book talk girls call her. I don't know if anybody calls her that actually. Y'all told me to read Verity, so that's what we will be doing today. All I know about this book is that it is written by Colleen Hoover. There's a girl named Verity in it who is bedbound or maybe dead. I think she's just bedbound though. And then there's also a chick that's going to be played by Anne Hathaway that moves into her house and hooks up with her husband, apparently. And there's a prominent scene with a headboard. People keep mentioning it, and now I'm scared for when I get to that scene. This is Colleen Hoover's only mystery, but it is still plenty spicy, apparently. Good. Clearly, I don't know much about this book. So let's get some reading done so I can actually start breaking this book down for y'all, and the chaos that is probably in here. I'll try to figure out the mystery too. It'll be so fun to watch me fail at that. When I tell you I have never been more scared to start a book, I mean I have never been more scared to start a book. What am I about to go through? Future Natalie, is it bad? Is it really bad? This is not the way I thought this was gonna start. What do you mean? I heard it pop like the cork of a champagne bottle. Talking about somebody's head. I don't know how to fully describe just how odd this writing style is. We're 33 pages in, and I wish I would have highlighted every time they said all right because it's kind of absurd. All right, all right, all right. Y'all think you're so funny, don't you? Y'all told me to read this book. You know, the one that I share the last name with the author, Hoover. And then, lo and behold, I get to chapter 4, and what is the name of the character's best friend in this? Natalie. I thought I was escaping my name as soon as I read the author's name on this book, but no. My actual first name is now just within the pages. And that's worse. That's worse. Oh, thank goodness, she hasn't spoken to this Natalie in 6 months. I think we're okay, guys. Good, Natalie, get out of this, get out of here. I really hope we don't hear from her again. The headboard. Firstly, I was wrong about who Anne Hathaway plays. She plays Verity. Lowen, our main girl, is played by Dakota Johnson. Okay? I do apologize. No, truly, I didn't know what to expect going into this book, but let me tell you what I didn't expect. I didn't expect the first sentence of this book to be, I hear the crack of his skull before the spattering of his blood reaches me. Okay, that got dark fast. Before I get you more info on that whole situation, let me introduce you to Lowen. She is a writer that moved from Virginia to New York because she wants to be invisible. Because she's just so awkward. Anyway, she is now covered in blood because some random guy decided to just walk across the street without looking both ways and got crushed by a truck and his head got squished by the tire. See kids, this is why we don't cross the street without looking both ways because it may possibly lead to your head exploding. Now my Texas brain over here is thinking everybody will be freaking out about this scene like any normal person would, but no, apparently New Yorkers just don't care. And they just keep on walking as soon as they get the pedestrian cross sign. Lowen, covered in blood, is like, I should probably step aside so I can give a statement or something. But no, she just is pushed forward with the crowd, so she keeps walking. She gets to the other side of the intersection and she just stops there because she's like, I'm covered in another person's blood, oh my gosh. This is when another random guy comes over, touches her arm, and he's like, are you okay? This nice random man has to ask again if she is okay before she's like, yeah, it's not my blood, I'm fine. Then she's like, is there blood on my face? This man doesn't say anything and just gestures towards a coffee shop saying, they'll have bathrooms in there. So yeah, there's blood on her face. That is the confirmation that there is blood on her face. But oh no, once they get in there, the woman's restroom is locked. But luckily, she has a man with her, so he just goes over to the men's restroom and opens it up. It's like a single stall bathroom situation, so they both go in. Does he give her any privacy? No, he walks right in there with her. He closes the door. She's just trying to get cleaned up, not freaking out about the man in the restroom with her. She's like, the door isn't locked. We're fine. I'm sorry, you just met this man. I don't care how nice he seems. You are not coming into an enclosed room with me. Eventually, she has to unbutton her shirt and take it off, leaving her just standing there in her bra and blood-covered torso as well because it seeped through the shirt. There's a lot of blood. And so you're thinking, the random man will politely leave now, but no, he just goes over to the door and locks it. I'm sorry, that's a threat. I'm screaming, I'm running, I'm saying, get out of here. Let me clean my blood-soaked shirt in peace, sir, please. But our girl over here, she's just standing there, watching him from the mirror, feeling a little uneasy. Just a little uneasy. Then there's a knock on the door, and then she's like, oh good, another random man is right outside the door, so I'm completely safe right now. So our girl is just chilling there in her bra in this random bathroom with a random man, covered in blood. Eventually, this random man just unbuttons his shirt and says, here, handing it to her. He still has like one of those white undershirts underneath, but he's looking a little ridiculous with his suit jacket over that. But she takes the shirt because there's no salvaging her shirt. It is covered, and it was very white. She starts to put on the shirt and she's looking in the mirror and she's like, wow, my eyes are so much darker because of the tragedy I just saw. Is that how eyes work? Do you have mood rings for eyes? That's not how my eyes work. Do your eyes work like that? Colleen, do your eyes work like that? I've got questions. We move right on from that. Like it's a totally normal thing for your eyes to change color when you see a tragic event. And they just start having a little conversation in the bathroom while this poor random man is just standing outside there going, I really need to pee. But this dude in here is like, you are freakishly calm right now. And she's like, yeah, I don't really know what just happened. I'm kind of in a state of shock, but I'm kind of calm. It's been a rough week. She's like, what about you? And he's like, I've seen worse. And she's like, what has this man seen? Is he a doctor? Like, we just saw a man's head get caved in. What has he seen? But then she gets distracted by his chartreuse eyes. That's right. Chartreuse! No normal color are we going to choose to describe these eyes. Chartreuse. Colleen, right now the biggest bone I have to pick with you is the way you're describing eyes. Anyway, she also gathers that this random man is handsome, but it looks like he wishes he weren't so handsome, and it's kind of an inconvenience for him to be this handsome. I don't know how she's telling all of that by looking at this man for a few minutes, but apparently, she's a witch. Anyways, after this trauma bonding experience they've had, we finally learn that his name is Jeremy. After learning his name, she takes the next logical step and asks, what did you see that was worse? Ma'am, you just met this guy. Jeremy just explains, though, that he had to pull his 8-year-old daughter's body out of the lake like 5 months ago. I'm so sorry, Jeremy. But ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the king of trauma dumping? I mean, this has to be like record time. You have like 5 minutes together and you've already told her that? He basically just asked her the same thing, and she's thinking, oh, it's a stupid little thing. She doesn't say that out loud, but she's thinking it, and then she's like, yeah, my mom just died from cancer like a week ago. Girl, that's not a silly little thing. You also just lost someone that probably meant a lot to you. Oh, and also, this was her first time outside since that happened. I mean, yeah, probably not as bad as your own kid drowning, but still pretty bad. Again, as they're talking about all of this, there's still just a poor random man out there going, guys, seriously, I really got to pee. Please. Jeremy's finally like, oh, well, I got a meeting to get to. You gonna be okay? She says, I'll be all right. He's like, all right? And again, she says, yeah, I'll be all right. Now you may be wondering, why would I include this less than stellar dialogue? Well, it's because Colleen Hoover is obviously trying to make this their thing that they tell each other all right. They've already done it a few times in the 60 pages I've read. It's not cute. It just sounds like Matthew McConaughey was writing the book. All right, all right, all right. They go their separate ways after this, and then Lowen sends us to a flashback, and she's just talking about the stupid ant for, I kid you not, a page and a half. Because it was a lone ant, and she's also antisocial and lonely in this giant city. And it's just comparing herself to this ant for a page and a half. Colleen, you could have just told me she was an introvert. We didn't have to talk about an ant for that long. Anyways, we really heard about this ant because we needed to know that her literary agent and her used to hook up. But they don't anymore because now it's strictly business. They're professionals. Even though they had like a professionals with benefits thing going for like 2 years, they're strictly professionals now. No funny business here, guys. Now, they did even have a little relationship before they just came professional business people with benefits to each other. But she quickly found out he was in love with another woman. You may be going, what? And trust me, this isn't gonna clear it up. The other woman he was in love with was a woman that she had written about in one of her books. Fake, fictional character. He just thought she was going to be like the woman she had written. She's not. So that didn't work out. After this whole fiasco, Lowen finally makes it to the publishing house she was originally going to this morning. She was like 2 blocks away when she got covered in blood, but now she's there in the lobby waiting in line so she can be let up into the building. And then somebody from behind her goes, nice shirt. That's right, Jeremy is also here. Apparently, his meeting is also in this building. And his meeting just so happens to be on the same floor as hers. So they get through the line and they are now on the elevator together. They're chit-chatting in this elevator and we learn that his wife is a writer. He also learns that she is a writer and he's like, oh, would I have read any of your books? She's like, probably not. They're not that popular. So he just goes on Google and starts looking up her name. And she's like, what if I write under a pen name? And he's like, yeah, no, you don't. Lowen Ashley. That's funny. That's actually the name of the author I'm meeting with today at 9:30. They both go their separate ways, and then she starts going on this whole monologue about how it's really suspicious how they ran into each other on the street. But doesn't it make it less suspicious because they were heading to the same place around the same time? Like, that makes it way more likely, I feel like. It just feels like she's trying way too hard to make me not trust this man, which makes me feel like maybe I can actually trust this man. Her agent, Corey, is there now, and he's like, oh, you're actually on time. Because it's just a silly little quirk of hers that she's late all the time. It's such a silly little quirk that her agent told her to be there at 9 when the meeting was actually at 9:30. So now they're both just there with 30 minutes to kill. They make their way into the conference room that they'll be meeting in today, and he's like, how's your mother doing? And she's like, well, she's dead. Thanks for asking, though. So, you know, you get that awkward, oh, how are you doing conversation after that nobody likes. Not the person asking, how are you doing? Not the person that has to be like, yeah, I'm doing fine. Eventually, the people from the publishing company and Jeremy walk into the room. They all sit down and explain to them that one of their authors is unable to fulfill her contract due to medical reasons. And they're now searching for somebody else to take over the remainder of the book series. Before they can even find out who this mystery author is, they have to sign a non-disclosure contract. Once they both sign this contract, we learn that the author that she would be covering for is Verity Crawford, a very, very well-known author in this universe. They simply want Lowen to finish the last 3 books in her ongoing series that many, many people love, do all the press tour, everything like that Verity would normally do. Oh, and also, she needs to submit the first book within 6 months. Big problem with this. She is horribly insecure and doesn't even do press stuff for her own books. Because the one time she did it, she was so nervous she wasn't really talkative with people, and then somebody emailed her and called her a bitch. But this publishing company is offering her $75,000 per book. She wouldn't get any royalties, that would go to Verity still, but still $75,000 per book is a lot of money for her. Especially since she's currently about to be evicted from her apartment. Now, she wouldn't see the $75,000 until she submitted that first book, but still, she would actually have a big chunk of money on the way. And that means for the total 3 books, she would make $225,000. Now, that's before tax and also her agent fee. But still, that leaves her with at least $100,000 for about 2 years of work. She's trying to decline this because she really doesn't want to be a part of this. She doesn't think she's talented enough for this. And Corey's like, give us a minute. Give me a minute alone with her. We're gonna talk. They're like, okay, you guys talk, but we need an answer in at least a couple days because we have some other offers that we will also be talking to about this. The 2 publishing people head out, but Jeremy stays. And he asks if he can speak to Lowen alone. And Corey's like, what the frick? I just asked to speak to her alone. What do you mean? And he's looking at Lowen like, are you hearing this guy? And she's like, it's fine. So Corey just walks out of the room and he's like, I don't know what just happened. Once he's out of the room, Jeremy's like, okay, I know you've got questions. Ask. We learned that Verity was in a car accident and they were hoping she would make a full recovery at first, but, well, they're here. Verity has actually read at least one of her books and swore she was going to be the next big thing because they had a similar writing style. Seems a little self-conceited, but okay, but also she was already a very well-established author, so conceited in a good way. We love confidence. That's what I mean, confidence. Got it. And he really wants to hire somebody that he knows Verity respects and already likes their writing style. She's still like, no, I'm not the girl for that. Jeremy's reply to this is to lean on the table and go, have you ever heard of what people call chronics? No, she hasn't, because that's not a thing. That's not a thing. Chronically ill people, one of them, I'm not a chronic. What are you talking about, Jeremy? We learned that apparently chronics is something that Verity probably made up. It's definitely something Verity made up, but she made it up after both of their daughters died, saying they were chronics, prone to chronic tragedy. One terrible thing after the other. Verity, that makes no sense. You're a writer and that makes no sense. Colleen Hoover, did you really think that was some big thing? I'm sorry. That's so stupid. Like, yeah, if you told me chronically ill people started calling ourselves chronics, actually I wouldn't be okay with that. That's dumb. Let's not start doing that. Thank you. Anyways, she's just skirting right by the insanity of that, and she's like, hold up, daughters? Because he only mentioned one daughter that died before. Turns out, he had twins, and they died within 6 months of each other's. Rip to the lovely twins. And I kid you not. Lowen's inner monologue after he told her all the bad stuff that has happened to him recently is, oh well, I really like hearing him talk though, even if it is about horribly tragic things. What is wrong with you? She decides to try and comfort him by telling him about a man she knew in Richmond, Virginia, that lost all of his family. You know what happened to this man? This man offed himself. But when Jeremy asks what happened to this man, she lies and she's like, yeah, he has a really happy life now. New wife, new kids, it's all fine and dandy. He knows she's lying. Why did you bring that up? He steers this conversation back to her writing these books. And he's like, you'll have to spend some time in Verity's office. I'm sure she has some plot outlines, something like that on the characters that you would find useful in there. She's like, no, seriously, I'm not gonna do it. He just cuts her off and goes, they're lowballing you. Ask for $500,000, no press stuff, and ask to write under a pen name. They'll give it to you. Before she can respond to this, he just says, we live in Vermont. I'll send you the address once you sign. You can stay however long it takes you to go through her office. The only words to leave her mouth are, all right. He says all right and leaves. It's never gonna be cute. Corey comes back in now and she's like, okay, they're lowballing us. Ask for $500,000, no press stuff for me, and I get to write under a pen name, and a non-disclosure contract is also involved in all of this. Corey's like, cha-ching, all right. Then cut to chapter 3. She instantly starts talking about a boyfriend she had in her early 20s that liked to be choked. But she refused to do that, and now she wonders what her life would be like if she hadn't just refused to choke that man. I'm not kidding you. This chapter just cold opens to, I had a boyfriend that liked to be choked. What? People are reading this and then recommending it to other people? I get it, I'm 60 pages in. Maybe it takes a turn for the better. I don't think it will, though. Apparently Colleen Hoover needed to give her a how did I end up here moment, and this was the only way to do it, apparently. Or somebody dared her to do it. That's the only reasonable explanation I can think of. They better have given her a lot of money for that. We did a little bit of a time skip. She's now signed the contract, and Corey has come over with champagne, but he didn't give any notice that he was coming over, so she didn't have time to remove the eviction notice from her door. He saw it, and he's like, oh. Ooh. And she's like, I don't want to talk about it. She's getting kicked out in 2 days. Luckily, though, she's going to Vermont to figure out what the hell she's actually about to start writing. Because she hasn't read these books before. But after she's done in Vermont, she's probably just going to have to live in motels or something. She doesn't really know. Now, Corey over here does not like the idea of her going to Vermont by herself, because she will be staying in the house with a guy who has just recently lost 2 daughters and had a wife that got in a really bad car crash, and it just feels a little suspicious. But she also had a bit of suspicion about this. She did some research and she's like, it's fine, it all checked out, we're good. Now Corey over here was clearly trying to do some more celebrating tonight, if you know what I mean, but she doesn't want to do that because professional agent offer relationship right here now, kids. So he eventually just leaves and is like, keep me updated when you're in Vermont. Don't die. During her road trip to Vermont, she listens to the first book in the series. Now, personally, this feels like something she should have already done. She signed the contract already. I feel like she should have already started and kind of gotten to know these characters, but no, we're just going to this random lady's office, trying to find plot stuff for a story she knows nothing about. Maybe read the books before you get there? Now, this random little portion while she's in the car is the same portion that my name is brought into this. Not just my last name, Hoover. No, also my first name, Natalie. That's right, there's a character named Natalie in here. Help me! Why am I in this book? Now, luckily, I'm just mentioned. Yes, this Natalie in this book is the same as me. Now, I'm going to refer to Natalie as me. Luckily, I'm just mentioned in a little side comment, and she's like, yeah, my old friend Natalie, I could have called her during this time, and it better stay that way. I better not be in any more of this book. But I put my picture up there looking distressed for that reason. I'm scared. What if I show up more? I really hope I don't. I don't want to be involved in this. Anyways, after listening to this book, she is even more insecure and wondering why they picked her for this because she is never proud of what she writes. After having a pity party about getting this major book deal and all that stuff, she knows this pity party is dumb. She gets to the gate of their house. It opens and she drives up, seeing this dark stone house with this blood red door on it. Okay, Colleen Hoover, you're trying a little too hard to be a little creepy right now. You don't have to try that hard. It's okay, honey. You can let things be subtle. I don't think she knows that, though. She eventually stops gawking at this giant house and turns to open her door and just goes, shit! Because there's just this random little kid standing right outside her door. This is Jeremy's son, Crew. He looks like a miniature version of Jeremy, but in here he's Johnny Test, okay? We're all just going with it. I didn't want to put an actual child on this board. That seemed cruel. She gets out of her car, says hi. The kid says nothing. Then he just starts walking towards the house and goes inside and shuts the door behind him, leaving her still outside. She's like, oh, okay. So she starts ringing the doorbell, hoping somebody will answer, but nobody comes down. So eventually she texts Jeremy and she's like, hey, I made it. When he gets to the door, she's like, wow, he's in sweatpants and a banana fish t-shirt and socks. He looks so different. Did she turn into Jennifer Coolidge? And no shoes. He's just a chill dad. They say hi and he explains he was upstairs. That's why he didn't hear the doorbell. And Crew, the child, was supposed to let her in. I think Crew meant to, but he was still inviting her in by shutting the door in her face. This is just a normal kid thing. This kid is like 5, okay? He notices that she doesn't have her suitcase, so he offers to go and get it. She's like, no, you don't have to. It's really fine. It's just in the trunk of my car. I'll get it later. And he goes out to her car and gets it. So she just starts walking further into the house and gets to the kitchen, which is also gorgeous. Once he gets back inside, he shows her to the room she'll be staying in, which actually used to be their master bedroom. And he's like, hope that isn't weird. It wasn't too weird until she got in there and noticed the teeth marks in the headboard. And she's wondering what these two did to cause that. He just drops the suitcase in there and they start to head out. She notices the door doesn't have a lock on it though. And she's like, hey, does this door have a lock on it? He's like, no, never has. Do you want one? I can put one on there for you. And she's like, no, it's fine. I feel like she's going to regret that later. They're now heading upstairs to introduce her to Verity, and he asks for her pen name because Verity's nurse will be in the room and he wants to keep this as secretive as possible. She doesn't have a pen name yet, and he's like, okay, what was the name of the street you grew up on, and what was the name of your first pet? And that comes out to Laura Chase. Now you want to know what my pen name would be if I went with this way? Cane's Pepper. All I'm saying is she got really freaking lucky. They get to Verity's room and she sees Crew curled up on the bed next to Verity, who is just looking up at the ceiling with a vacant expression on her face. Jeremy goes ahead and introduces Lowen to the nurse because clearly Verity isn't really all here. There's no reason to really introduce them. Anyways, after introducing her to the nurse just goes, I didn't think you would be this young. Ma'am! I mean, they're definitely gonna hook up at some point, but wow, she clocked that early. After all of this, they finally go to Verity's office, where she will be spending most of her time. And let me tell you, this is the office of all offices. There's a big comfy chair to ride in. There's a giant desk in there, bookshelves floor to ceiling stuffed with books, random boxes that are kind of like her organization system, but not really. Because apparently Verity would just write down notes on anything. At one point, she wrote down a note for a book on Crew's diaper. Mind you, they're in the age of smartphones. She could have gone to her little notes app and typed it right up, but no, she wrote it with a Sharpie on a diaper because that made more sense. After a bit, Jeremy leaves Lowen to start investigating this room and start trying to find what she will need to write these books. This is where we learn a little more about these books. The books are all in the Noble Virtue series, and all of these books are written from the villain's point of view. Every book in the series covers a different virtue. The books left cover the virtues of, there's hair in my eye, courage, truth, and honor. Oh, also, we learned that Jeremy over here has only ever read one of his wife's book because he doesn't like being inside his wife's head. You married her! What do you mean? Moving on from that, Lowen just decides to go ahead and pick up the second book because, again, she hasn't read this series before. And she sits down in that big comfy office chair and starts reading. And she has sat there for 3 hours straight. No interruptions. She eventually gets up, though, and starts digging through some boxes, trying to find some stuff. She finds some manuscripts for the books that were already written, and she's really hoping she can find, like, a plotline or something for at least one of these 3 books that she needs to write. After a little bit, she does find a new title that isn't published by Verity called So Be It. And it reads, I sometimes think back on the night that I met Jeremy and wonder, had we not made eye contact that night, would my life still end the same? Oh yeah, this is an autobiography that nobody has ever seen before. And we get to read this right along with Lowen, and I'm sure there's going to be some juicy stuff in there. That right there is just the first 60 pages of this book. We have so much more to go. Let's get some more reading done and find out more about this girl. Okay, you're a psycho. Good for you, girl. You know, thanks for telling me about it. Is she jealous of her children? Did she kill her children? She killed her children, didn't he? Didn't she? She did. I can't even lie to y'all. I was reading this book this morning and completely forgot to record because I was actually invested in it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not good. I'm not saying that, but I am saying it's like a really fun, really bad reality TV show that you can't look away from. You know it's not good content, but you're there and you're like, you know what? I'm invested. That's how I am with this book. It's like when I watch The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, that's how this book makes me feel. Except they say more stupid stuff in here. Oh, are they gonna bond? Yes, please tell me how you're going to explain this to him. What? This is the worst lie in history. What? Are you a freaking vampire? What do you mean? Oh, nah. No, sir, no. This book is so predictable. Wow, thank you, Colleen Hoover, for spoon-feeding that to me like I'm an idiot. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you shouldn't have done, but you keep doing all of them. Y'all, I've only read like 30 pages in this sitting or something. But I don't want to keep reading. Let me be free. Yeah, it's a creepy house, I get it. What is he doing at that dock? He's there all the time. Ah! Oh! Who writes an autobiography like this? Like, what? I don't like it. Let me tell y'all, I learned a lot about Verity. Because apparently she decided to make her autobiography a spicy book. Is that a thing people do? Am I just unaware of this? This doesn't seem normal. She starts off her autobiography being like, you're going to hate me after reading this, but you're gonna keep reading because it's human nature to be curious. And you know what? She was absolutely right because this is the most intriguing part of the entire damn book. Chapter 1, she's like, yeah, I could sense my daughter was going to die. And I've sensed that something is coming for me. So I guess I better write this now. That sounds like a threat. I don't know what to categorize that under, though. Anyways, let me tell you how I met Jeremy. But before she can really get into telling us about Jeremy, she has to get into telling us all about her red, her words, f***able dress that she stole and was wearing that night in detail. Her and Jeremy are both at this fancy charity auction thing. They're making eye contact throughout the night, and she doesn't want to seem desperate, so she goes over and sits down at a bar eventually just to kind of ignore him and let him come to her. And it works, because a little later, he comes up behind her, touches her shoulder, and tells the bartender to only serve her water from now on. She's like, excuse me, what are you talking about? And then orders another drink from the bartender, and Jeremy's like, no. After this, the poor bartender has had enough of them and tells them to go to another bar in that venue. So she gets up and walks over to the other bar. She's sitting down, she's waiting for the other bartender to get to her so she can order her drink, when once again, Jeremy comes up behind her and he's like, you didn't even let me explain why I just wanted you to order water. It's because he wants to take her home with him, and he doesn't want her to be overly drunk because he's not gonna take her home if she is. So, when the bartender comes back, she orders a water, and so does he. Once they're done with their luxurious waters, they go outside and climb into his limo. Now, obviously, there was another girl in this limo, but she doesn't really care because she's in the limo now. They're getting kind of touchy, and she's like, where's the driver? And he's like, I don't know, it's not my limo. See, he's actually just an entry-level scrub that drove himself here. Now, Verity was on the lookout for a rich man tonight, but he's not that. He just got dragged along with some of his rich friends. She's like, well, he's nice and hot, so I'm just gonna go with it. And then explains the only reason she is here is because she cleans buildings and found a ticket in the trash can of one. They're getting more cozy, they're chatting, but all of a sudden the limo driver is back, and they're not supposed to be in here because it's not his frickin' limo. She's delayed getting out because she's in heels and has to take them off before she can run away from this limo driver. He helps her by grabbing the heels when she gets them off, and then they run over to his Honda Civic. Now this is where they start making out against his car, and she's like ready to just go for it in the back of the car, and he's like, no. So then they go to a Steak and Shake, and they don't do it there either. They just have food, and he does some stuff under the table with his hands, if you know what I mean, but he doesn't, finish it, if you know what I mean. Okay. How do I get in these situations? How am I here? Okay. Anyways, after the Steak and Shake, they finally get to his apartment, and they get into bed, and you know what they start doing. Like, come on. It's a Colleen Hoover book. What they did in that bed is so good, in fact. She ends up just staying there for days. And that's basically all they do besides eat takeout food. Now, Verity quickly grows obsessed with him. And I don't mean like, haha, funny, obsessed, she has a cute little crush. No, I mean, she doesn't want to live anymore if he's not around. But they both fall in love, so it's all good, right? Because this is the foundation of a really healthy relationship, being completely obsessed with your partner. Then she decides to end this first chapter on an ominous note. He loved me more than he loved anyone or anything. I was his sole reason for living. Until he discovered the one thing that meant more to him than I did. So it's not hard to read in between the lines that she's talking about the children. But we'll get into that more later because now we're back with Lowen. And she's like, yeah, I shouldn't have read that, but I do need to get into her head to be able to write these books, so it's totally fine and it wasn't inappropriate of me to read that. It is well past dinner time, so she is hungry. She gets up, she goes to the kitchen. It's like 11 o'clock at night right now. But on her way to the kitchen, she stops in the hall because she hears creaking coming from where Verity's room would be. And then she realizes it sounds like the creaking of a bed, as if people were doing something on it. And she's like, oh my gosh, Jeremy is an actual monster right now. But as she's thinking this, Jeremy sees her and goes, noisy, I know. She's like, oh, thank goodness. But also, does he know what I just thought he was doing, but he's actually not doing that? Because that's pretty awkward if he actually thinks that. Oh no. He explains that it's just her fancy hospital bed readjusting for her to take pressure off of certain points of her body. Jeremy is out here because he's also a night owl, and he's currently heating up pizza, and he's like, do you want some? And even though she hates pizza, this girl is like, yeah, I would love some pizza. They're bonding over their night owlness, and she's looking at his hands just thinking about what she just read about them doing. Totally appropriate, totally chill. She knows she shouldn't be thinking about this, so she just blurts out, she's like, did she tell you anything about what she had planned for the characters or later books in the series? Please, any other subject besides looking at your hands. Unfortunately, he doesn't know anything. She actually hadn't even talked about writing months before the car wreck happened. This is when she gets another brilliant idea, and she's like, hold up, I need to confirm if this autobiography is true. So she asked Jeremy about how these two met. And the story he tells lines up exactly with the autobiography, except he tells a much more PG version, kid-friendly version. Why are you writing that, Verity? Then they just keep talking. And at one point, he even brings up his daughters that have passed away in the present tense, and then he looks so incredibly sad, and then just starts talking about them. This is when she takes a pretty big sigh of relief, because the way he's talking about his kids is not the way somebody who murdered their children would talk about their kids. So to her, this is definitely not an act. But she hasn't been proven to be the smartest character, so I don't know really if I should trust her thinking on this. And then after a bit of him staring into her eyes so much that he's probably seeing her thoughts, her words, not mine. I don't really know if that makes any sense. It doesn't make sense to me, but maybe it does to you, and that's great. Anyway, she gets up and she's like, I gotta go back to work. And he gets up eventually and just goes, good night, Lo. And she's like, oh my gosh, I got a nickname. She's so excited about this, she forgets to even say goodnight to him. And then goes straight back to Verity's office to read more of her book. This second chapter gets further into the relationship. She mentions how the first 2 years were just really easy, and she also acknowledges that she is addicted to him and slightly codependent, fully codependent. One night while they're having fun, he's like, you should move in. Fun fact, she already did because her lease was up 2 months ago, and she just decided not to pay anything, not to renew it. So she doesn't have a place of her own, and she never informed him of this, but she does her best and gaslights this man and is like, yeah, we totally talked about this. And he's like, pretty sure I would remember that, but yeah, no, pretty sure I would remember that. Anyways, he just decides to believe it, and this is the first time she mentions herself biting the headboard because of how much fun they were having. Flash forward a little bit, Jeremy had to go to Los Angeles for part of his nurse doctor training. Residency, probably. I don't know. Anyways, that means she's all alone, and you guessed it, she doesn't do too well with this. But this is when she starts writing, because originally she just started doing it to kind of create a fictional Jeremy. And you know, one thing led to another, and she wrote an entire novel while he was gone. The day he got home was the day she finished writing the last page of her novel. The moment this man walks into the door, she gets down to business, and then she goes and throws up in the toilet for reasons. When she comes out from the bathroom, she finds him reading her book. And she's like, please don't read that, because she's scared he's gonna read it and think it's not good and then hate her. A very logical thought, I know. Instead of giving it back, he just runs into the bathroom, locks himself in there, and reads the entire thing. Now, she tried many ways to get this man out of the bathroom, and none of them worked, so eventually she just went to bed. She is later woken up by him being like, it's good, it's really good. And then they start doing what they do best. And in the middle of that, he asks her to marry him. I just have to ask, when you get engaged like this, what do you tell people? Oh yeah, we got engaged in the middle of him. I'm sorry. I truly would love to know the fake story they told everybody, because there's no way they were telling everybody this. What did they tell their children? Speaking of children, this wasn't just the night they got engaged. This was the night they conceived. And she ends this chapter saying, darkness ahead. Verity, honey, I think we get it. We know some messed up stuff is about to happen, but you're starting to sound like a Batman villain. And that's just a little much. Back to the present day, the next day, Lowen is trying to focus on getting stuff done and figuring out how to write the next book in the series, but she's heavily distracted because April, the nurse, has brought Verity out for some outside time and has parked her right in front of her office window. And after reading the first couple chapters of her book, she's a little freaked out by Verity, so it's really hard for her to focus right now. But she knows this is so stupid because Verity hasn't been able to walk or talk since the accident. Eventually, April leaves Verity alone for a bit to go and grab something. Lowen is just doing her work, but then she looks up, and Verity is staring right at her. Into her soul. She's staring so hard and intensely, she's seeing her thoughts. Now, if I'm Lowen, I'm out of here. I'm getting my little Kia Soul that I rented, and I will sleep in that until I can find another way to live. I've gotten enough for the story. I will figure it out with the books. I don't need her notes. No, a girl who's supposed to not be able to move or talk at all is staring me dead in the eyes. I'm out. But she's just like, that's creepy. I'm gonna leave the office now. But when she gets to the office door, she gets jump scared by her own phone ringing. She picks it up. It's the apartment building she applied for that she was pre-approved for, telling her that she was actually denied and they can't accept her as a tenant. And she's like, hey, is there anything we can do for me to move into this building? Like, I really need something. I could pay a year worth of rent up front. And they're like, you can appeal the decision, but there's nothing really we can do. She ends the call and then she hears a knock on the open office door. Now this office is soundproof, but you know, when the door's open, soundproofing doesn't work too well. So yeah, Jeremy heard everything that she was just talking about. And he's like, hey, we can help you with money until you get your first payment for the books. She doesn't want to take his money, so he's like, okay, then you can just stay here for a couple weeks until you get your advance for writing these books. She doesn't want to do this at first, but eventually she has to give in because really there's nowhere else for her to go. She doesn't have any money, really. And honestly, it's going to take her at least 2 weeks to get through everything in Verity's office. And you know how she accepts this offer? Well, of course, it's by her saying, all right, because it's their thing and they're so cute. Do you get it yet? Later that day, she's outside trying to get through the 3rd book, but it's really hard to concentrate because he took off his shirt. And she is jumping through hurdles to make this okay in her brain. It's because he was Verity's muse as well. So obviously, she just has to get into the mindset of Verity. So it's okay to be like, wow, that man is hot. Let me think about all the things we could be doing together. Girl, that's not how this works and you know it. The only reason she stops staring is because the door slams behind her and April is standing there definitely judging her as she should be. They have an awkward conversation and then April leaves for the day. She's out. She's like, hey, Verity's taken care of. It's up to Jeremy now. Am I saying it that way because of Candace from Phineas and Ferb? Oh. When she turns back to start staring at him again, she actually sees Crew waving at her and she's like, oh, cute, and she's about to wave, but then she realizes Crew is waving above her. There's a window right above her to Verity's room. So apparently Crew is waving at Verity. Now April just left. She would be the only other person in that room. Verity is bedbound. She ain't waving unless she's lying. So she looks up in the window because she's like, surely he's just waving at the window for some other reason. And when she looks up there, the curtain is moving like it was just open and now it's going shut. She's low-key freaking out now and has to go upstairs to check this out herself. Mind you, there's nobody else in the house right now. Why she decides to go and check this out alone is beyond me, but she does. When she gets up there, she peeks in and Verity is still on her bed, just staring up at the ceiling. She then sees the rotating fan that when it goes by the curtain moves. So that explains why the curtain was moving like that, hopefully. She's starting to calm down. She's like, my imagination is so crazy. But then she realizes the TV is off. Now, that wouldn't seem like a big deal, except April told her that she turned the TV on for Verity. Lauren's like, surely there's an explanation on how she turned the TV off, or maybe April just accidentally didn't actually turn it on or press the button again. Something weird must have happened. Verity couldn't have done it. So yeah, Verity totally can't walk, totally can't talk. I mean, no. No. Anyways, come back to her manuscript. This chapter covers the times that she was pregnant with the twins. We very quickly learn that Verity has a pretty bad eating disorder and is obsessed with her looks. So much so that she can't stand her baby bump. But he loves her bump, saying she's never looked more beautiful. But her inner monologue is like, no, I looked hideous. He was lying to me. He proceeds to do so many caring, sweet, expecting dad things. But Verity hates it because she can tell he already loves this baby more than her. And it gets even worse when she finds out it's twins, because now in her head, she's competing with 2 babies instead of 1 for his attention. At this point, about 4 months into her pregnancy, she is hoping for a miscarriage because she doesn't want any of Jeremy's attention going anywhere else but to her. She started taking sleeping pills, drinking wine, doing everything they tell you not to do when you're expecting a child. But nothing is working. So she starts telling us all about this one night that he stopped doing it in the middle of them having fun because he felt the baby's kick. And when she asked if he loved them more than her, he was like, yeah, of course I do. Broski. What? Now, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion of mine, but like, yes, I would expect my husband to love those kids so much. But it's not really a more than me way. It's a very different type of love you have for your kids. I feel like it's easy enough to be like, yeah, I'm gonna love them, but I still love you just as much. Like, Does he not know his wife is slightly insecure, insanely insecure? Like, he should be able to pick up on that a little bit. Yes, she shouldn't be this obsessive over it, but also just flat out saying you're going to love these kids more than her is questionable. Anyways, they keep going down this conversation and he gets emotional and he starts to cry over these babies because he already just loves them so much. And all she can think is, he's never cried over me. So Verity, overreacts just a little bit to this and goes into the bathroom with a wire hanger, and you can put two and two together. Again, mind you, the only reason she doesn't want these babies is because she is jealous of them. Can somebody please just get this girl to counseling, like some serious counseling? Because she's doing this because she wants Jeremy to cry over her. Because if she loses the baby, he'll definitely cry over her. The end of chapter. Back with Lowen. She has dropped the last page of this manuscript on the floor. Her jaw is on the ground. She just read what we just went through and she's like, oh my gosh. What type of mother is this? Like, if she was this jealous of the babies before they were born, how jealous was she when they actually started to get more of his attention? And would that lead her to do anything drastic? Lowen's like, all right, I gotta get out of this room. I need a freaking drink after that. She's looking around the kitchen. She doesn't find anything. Of course, he comes in and he's like, what are you looking for? And she's like, do you have anything alcoholic? Please, I need something alcoholic, please. Of course he does, and he just tells her to sit down while he makes her a drink. When he sits down at the table with his own drink as well, he's like, okay, what happened? Obviously, she doesn't want to tell him the truth, so she's like, yeah, I just got really spooked out by the book, the suspense thriller book I was reading. Even though I write these books myself, it just spooked me really bad. And he's like, maybe you should write a different genre after these three. She's like, yeah, probably should. He starts heating up some food from her, and while he's doing that, she starts asking some nosier questions like, will Verity ever fully recover? The answer to this is they don't think she will recover. She's not paralyzed, but something in her mind has been messed up where she's not able to speak or walk. She can't fully function right now. They think she basically has the mental capability of a baby right now. All of a sudden, Crew pops up that Lowen completely forgot about, and she's like, oh, okay, well, if she agreed to have another kid, she probably didn't kill these two. I mean, I'm sure that manuscript will just turn out to be better and she'll be like, yeah, I was really not doing great back then. But that doesn't convince me because I'm not sure she hasn't been paying attention or anything, but these two like to do it a lot. And, you know, accidents can happen. It's not like this first pregnancy was even planned. It wasn't unplanned. They didn't use any protection, so I don't know what they were thinking, but you know, I'm not sure if Crew was like, oh, I love being a mother so much, I want to have another baby. I think he's from a similar circumstance. Anyways, he goes off to get Crew ready for bed. She takes her time to eat, and then she starts looking at photos on the wall of the family. And she notices that one of the twins has a scar on her mouth. Yeah, we learned from him that the twin has had it since birth. So this scar was most likely caused by Verity. But the scar was easily explained away by something that can commonly happen when you have twins. So nobody really suspected her of anything. We also learned that Chasten, the one that has the scar, was the one that died from her peanut allergy. And you know, they're talking about his dead children, and then they just start staring at each other because there's nothing like talking about your dead kids that brings you together. He takes her hand and rubs his finger down the scar on it and asks where she got it. She's like, I don't remember. Don't worry, we'll kind of get a theory on where she got it from in a little bit, but she doesn't want to tell him for some reason. She now makes an excuse, though, to get to her room because him just simply touching her hand has made her start to think very questionable things. Again, like things he can do with his hands. Because she's read all about it. When she gets into her room, she notices that a lock has been put on her door. On the inside, it's a normal locking door now. She didn't have one there before. The reason she wanted one was not because she was really scared of them when she first got here, but it's more because she sleepwalks. And even though they had precautions in place one night when she was growing up, she woke up with a broken wrist and blood all over her hand. I feel like we're meant to possibly care about this mystery, but let me just tell you, I don't really. There's so much going on. Like, this is the least of my worries why she woke up one morning with a broken wrist. She probably did something klutzy and ditzy. I don't know. Anyways, I'm figuring she got a scar from sleepwalking or doing something else from sleepwalking that haunts her to this day. Ooh. Cut to 2 days later. She hasn't read any more of the manuscript, thank goodness. She's actually focusing on the actual reason she's here, which is to get character information, read the original books in the series, so she can start outlining the plot of the next book. Marina is the nurse that is here today. She's the nurse that works on Fridays and Saturdays, so April can have a break. Anyways, Llewellyn thinks she seems nice, and that's about all we get on her, but I feel like she might be a bigger player later. I really don't know. I don't know. She gets a text from her agent being like, hey, they announce you, under her pen name, as the co-author for the rest of the series. He sent a link over, but she doesn't even have time to click on it because Jeremy's at the door being like, hey, I'm heading over to Target because I need some stuff. Do you need anything? She needs tampons, and she doesn't really want to tell him that, even though he's definitely had to buy them before, and she knows that, but she's like, can I just come with you? So they get in his Jeep Wrangler. I don't know why I said it like that. And she finally gets to check the link she was sent. It's a very simple announcement, but she makes a big mistake and checks the comments. And yeah, people aren't thrilled because imagine if halfway through your favorite series, it was just like, hey, got a new co-author to help me with this because I wasn't doing good by myself, I guess. Yeah, I would be a little nervous too. She makes a little comment about the comments and he's like, yeah, just ignore them. Anyways, they eventually get to Target and he gets out the door and apparently sprints around the Jeep to open her door. Now, mind you, I might just be really impatient, but as soon as the car is set and parked, I'm opening the door, I'm hopping out, but apparently she's just dilly-dallying in there for some reason. I don't know. But it sets up this whole scene for him to open the door for her, help her out of the car, so they're holding hands so she can think about his hands again. We talk so much about his hands in this book. And this leads to her wondering if he misses intimacy with his partner because obviously they can't do anything. How one gets from touching hands to that, I have no clue. I feel like she might be in a bit of a dry spell. They're shopping. He's doing all his grocery shopping at this Target, by the way. Now, Target, yes, is like a richer place to get your groceries, but it doesn't even have great quality stuff, I feel like. So I'm a little confused by this because I feel like the rich people go to like the Whole Foods or the Sprouts and stuff like that to get all their groceries because that's like the really good quality stuff. But no, he goes to Target to get groceries for all their meals and stuff. Anyways, she splits off and goes off to get her tampons and a couple other things she needed. When she gets back to Jeremy, he is surrounded by two girls that have him basically cornered in the freezer section. And these girls are giving her the stank eye. When she walks over to Jeremy, she just places her stuff in the top of the cart and she's like, hey, look, we're not together like that. We're just here together, but it's not like that. You know, she doesn't say any of that, but she's hoping that is conveyed by her placing her stuff in the top of the cart, separating their two grocery hauls. He fills these girls in on why Verity is here, explaining that she's here to help with Verity's book and stuff like that. And the girls are like, oh, if Verity's feeling good enough to have somebody come over to help her write the book, have her contact us. We would love to get in touch with her again. Very like fake rich friends vibes. And they tell Jeremy to tell her they said hi and that they hope she's recovering well. And he's like, yeah, and give Sherman my best for me, will ya? And she's like, oh my gosh, as she walks away. See, because that's not that girl's husband's name. That's the name of the person she does on the side that her husband doesn't know about. And you know, it was kind of a funny little scene. I was like, oh, great little banter moment there with this random girl. You know, kind of fun. Love rich people drama. Anyways, Colleen Hoover has to go and ruin it because then Lowen's inner monologue is like, I've never witnessed such an epic burn in person before. Now look, millennials get a lot of crap on the internet, but I don't think this is millennials in general. I think this is a Colleen Hoover problem. Is she a millennial? I think she is. She writes like one. Not always a bad thing, but she writes like one. You know what I mean. Anyways, back on topic. During this whole Target run, she's like, okay, maybe I actually do have a little bit of a crush on him. You think? You think just a little bit? I think you have a big old crush on him, actually. Cut a couple days later, she is staring at Jeremy through the office window with her head propped up on her hands like this. Like full googly eye moment. Oh, Jeremy. He looks back and sees her, obviously, and she's like, well, I'm too committed, so she just smiles. He doesn't smile, but he doesn't look away. Eventually just takes a deep breath and goes down to work on his dock, which, mind you, He works on this dock like every other scene in this book. He's always ripping out wood from the dock, and I don't know how much wood is in a single dock for him to be down there every freaking day doing this, but apparently it's a giant dock. After this interaction, Lowen's like, yeah, my anxiety is really bad. I'm gonna go take a Xanax. So she's going to her bedroom to get the Xanax when she hears Crew scream from upstairs. She goes running up, and she can hear he's in Verity's room. So she runs right in and sees him on the floor with a knife next to him, blood dripping from his chin. She grabs him, gets him to the bathroom up there, and starts looking at his injury. Luckily, it isn't deep, but there's just a lot of blood. She asks, did you cut yourself with a knife? And he's like, no, my mommy tells me not to play with knives. And she's like, does your mother talk to you, like, now, recently? And Crew doesn't say anything and goes rigid. So yeah, his mom is talking to him. Before she can ask any more questions though, she hears Jeremy running up the stairs calling for Crew because apparently he heard the scream all the way from the dock. She's explaining what happened to him, but Crew has to correct her going, no, I didn't have a knife. I just fell off the bed. Jeremy asks Lowen, he's like, did you get the knife off the ground? And she's like, no, I just got the child. He's like, can you go check on that? Can you get the knife off the ground? So she goes back in to grab this knife, but when she gets in there, she doesn't see it anymore. It's gone. She checks under the bed. Maybe she kicked it. She's looking everywhere, but can't find it. When she looks back up at the bed after she's been looking under the bed, Verity once again is staring right at her. She wasn't doing that before. So Lowen just backs out of the room, terrified that Verity is just gonna lunge at her with a knife. She gets out and she's convincing herself that she had to make up this knife and there is no way that Verity turned her head and looked at her. It's just, this is all in her head. She needs to take some Xanax and calm down. She goes back to him and she explains, I didn't see the knife anywhere. And he's like, okay, I'll go look around. And before he goes into Verity's room, he thanks her for helping Crew because he knows how busy she's been today. Mind you, he caught her staring at him. And then after saying this, he winks at her. I think I just blinked, didn't I? And all of this just makes her crush way worse. And this leads her to thinking that maybe Verity always writes from the villain's perspective because that's what she knows. So she goes back downstairs to read another chapter of this manuscript. This chapter is right after the birth of the twins. She's pretending to be asleep while the doctors bring the twins back in after they got them all cleaned up and everything like that they do in the hospital. I don't know, I haven't given birth. Anyways, they're back in the room. And Jeremy is definitely feeling like this scar is something more than just a normal thing that happens with twins, but the doctors assure him it's just that, so he's like, okay. Once all the doctors leave and everything, she eventually opens her eyes and he's like, hey, mama. And I mean, we all know Verity must have loved that, right? No. She eventually just says, bring me the scarred one. This is not helping your whole Batman villain persona you're making, Verity. Granted, she does know this was a weird thing to say, but she didn't really have any other identifiers for them because they hadn't named them yet. But the scarred one is a crazy thing to say about your newly born baby. The scarred one. The boy who lives has come to die. She names the scarred one Chasten because in her head that's the prettier name, and the other one is named Harper. Chasten starts crying and he's like, she may be hungry. You should try to feed her. And he means like breastfeed her. And Verity's like, no, that's not happening. The nurse comes in at this time because she heard the baby crying and she's like, oh, are you gonna try breastfeeding? And she's like, no. And Jeremy's like, maybe you should. I mean, it's good for them. And she's like, no, please, no. But eventually the combination of Jeremy and the nurse convince her to at least try it. She tries it. The baby catches on so fast, which isn't always normal of what I know, but this baby is like, all right, I'm good to go. And she is disgusted by this. Disgusted. And I'm not shaming anyone who doesn't want to breastfeed, whatever. You do what you want to do. But, like, I'm not talking like she didn't want to do it because she was uncomfy. She just didn't want to do it because in her head, this is the most revolting thing that could ever happen to her. And he takes this as she's in pain, and he's like, oh, okay, I guess we can bottle feed. Which, might I just say, this is another point where I'm like, Jeremy, this is not your body. You don't get to pick if they're going to be breastfed or bottle fed. Are you going to sit there and have them gnawing at you all day? No. She is. She may be a little crazy, but she gets to decide this. The ending of this chapter is her once again just hating how much he loves these babies. After finishing this chapter, Lowen is angry. She can't figure out why, but eventually she works out. It's because Jeremy is basically a dream guy for everybody but Verity. He's a caring dad, he's very thoughtful, and yet she can't stand that he's a good dad, and this makes her jealous. Now this is when Lowen decides to take a box of photos that is in the office. These are all photos of the family. She takes them out to the kitchen table. She's looking through them for some research reason. I can't work it out, but anyways, Jeremy comes out and he's like, oh, the photos of my family with my dead children that just recently passed a few months ago. Cool. He handles it well though and just starts telling her more about the twins. And when she asks why Harper doesn't really smile in photos, he explains that she had Asperger's. She also notices that he will pause on photos of the girls but flip past photos of his wife. He just keeps telling her more and more about the twins' life, getting into more details about what he knew about them. It's honestly a very sweet moment of him just remembering his children and talking about them so fondly. He eventually starts talking about how Crew hasn't even mentioned his sisters since they died. Now, he did originally put Crew in therapy, but since he wasn't talking about any of this, it just felt like they were constantly reminding him about this tragic thing that happened. But I feel like when a kid goes nonverbal about something, that is definitely a sign that you still need them in therapy. I could be wrong. Again, not a parent. I don't know. But I feel like you may have pulled him out just a little too soon. But he is totally down for putting him back in therapy if he ever seems like he needs it. In this moment, she decides to hug him, and he hugs her back, and then they hug for a really long time, and then they're basically just standing there holding each other as they look into each other's eyes, and then his hand is on the back of her head, and they're just, again, staring at each other, and it looks like they're about to kiss. He's even leaning in, and the only reason he stops is because he sees Crew, and he's like, oh, hey, buddy. Crew just lunges at the table and starts grabbing the photos in his hand, shoving them back in the box. He's trying to calm his son down, but it's not working. He's just crying as he continues to slam these photos of his family back into the box they were in, yelling, put them back, I don't want to see them. He has to grab Crew and pull him back, and she takes over and puts all the photos back in the box. So I think maybe we should put the kid back in therapy. Just maybe. He takes Crew back upstairs, and she's like, maybe bringing the family photos out was a bad idea. Who would have thought? Now cut to that night. She's woken up by something, and then she feels like she hears footsteps coming down the stairs, but they're lighter than Jeremy's, but definitely heavier than Crew's. She hears more creaking in the house, and it's safe to say she doesn't sleep a lot that night. That next day, she goes to the dining room around lunch, and April is there having lunch with Verity. So she decides to go ahead and ask April some questions, like how long she's been with Verity, how long she's known Verity, which is not at all before the accident. While April's answering any of the questions she has for her, she's making sure to also include Verity in this conversation. Meanwhile, Lowen is barely even acknowledging her. April eventually has to speak to her in the hall, and she's like, okay. So they get in there, and she's like, hey, it's rude to talk in front of Verity like she isn't even there. We don't know what all she can comprehend. She goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that was rude. And this is the first time she actually gets a smile from April. They both get back to the kitchen in time to see Crew running in from outside with a turtle going, look, Mom, look, look, as he's trying to show it to Verity. Verity can't respond to this and give Crew the attention he's looking for right now, so Lowen steps in and she's like, oh, let me see your turtle, Crew, and offers to help him find something to put it in outside. So they both go outside, they find a bucket, put some grass in it, put the turtle in it. They sit down next to this bucket, and she can't be mad because she now has a view of Jeremy, once again, working on the dock. I don't know what he's doing down there, like I said. He's down there every freaking day. She's chit-chatting with the kid. It sounds like Crew maybe murdered a turtle at one point, but it turns out he just accidentally stepped on the turtle, so he's not a psychotic child. It's all okay. She was a little panicked there for a second. She does convince him to let this turtle go back into the wild, though. Jeremy eventually comes up there and catches up with them and asks Crew if he wants to go out to eat tonight, and he even offers to bring Lowen as well. And she's like, yeah, of course I'll go, because to her, this kind of feels like a date. She gets way more dolled up than normal, and he even tells her she looks nice. They spend most of this dinner listening to Crew tell some bad, predictable jokes, but it's funny because he's laughing so hard at every joke he tells, and eventually she's like, oh, let me tell you some of my jokes. And when I tell you these jokes are the worst thing I have ever read in my entire life, I mean it. Like, I'm not gonna make you suffer through them, but they're just bad. But for some reason, he's like, these are actually so funny because they're so bad, but it's just not the case. It's not the case. Her bad jokes just leave Crew and the reader judging her hardcore. They make it back to the house. Jeremy tells Crew to go upstairs and tell April she can leave because they're back now. He does that, leaving these two alone in the garage. And she's like, oh my gosh, are we gonna kiss right now or hug or something? Because it was totally like a date. But that's broken up when Crew comes back downstairs. And she goes straight to Verity's office to read more of the manuscript, hoping to find an intimate scene with Jeremy in it. Of course, we can all agree this is creepy, but she's doing this to aid the fantasies she figures she's going to have about him. Guys, she is turning into a stalker. Anyways, from one mentally unstable girl to the next, we are back in her brain, back in her book now. This is when the twins are home from the hospital and they are taking care of them. They are becoming real life parents. Now, they don't have a lot of money yet. She's just sold her first book, but it's not like that sells for a lot when it's her first one. So Jeremy still has to work. Both of them are spending most nights trying to tackle the twins because they're on like opposite schedules, so one is always crying for the most part, and they are struggling, especially in the intimacy area. This sucks for Lowen. This is not the chapter she wanted. Now, Verity is really struggling until she decides that when he's at work, she's just going to unplug the monitor in the twins' room, put in some earplugs, and sleep then. She just lets them cry all day long. But before Jeremy gets home, she's already taken care of all of them. They're happy because they're finally getting taken care of for the first time today, and she has dinner on the stove, and he's like, wow, you are such an amazing wife, and definitely not abusing our children. And since she switched her sleep schedule to sleeping in the day all the time anyways, she gets to write at night. So even with 2 babies, she's able to get books written. Everything is going great for her, except one thing. The doctor hasn't cleared them to be intimate yet, and he's not willing to risk trying anything until the doctor clears it. This is driving her insane, so one night she just decides to start doing stuff to him for a very long time. This drives him crazy to the point that he doesn't care what the doctor's orders are anymore, and they get their intimate scene, and she's also happy, I guess. This is so odd. So, Lowen gets what she was looking for, and I'm once again scarred for life. Thank you very much. Now, right now, I still have about half of this book left to recap, so I figured it would be a fun time to go over some of my theories. My first theory is that he did this to Verity because she killed her children. And of course, he found out. My second theory, once again, revolves around her killing her own children. But this time, it's because Jeremy started getting suspicious over here, and she's like, uh-oh, I gotta make him feel bad for me, so I'll wreck my own car. And that's what happened. I don't know, maybe it is. Theory number 3, April over here has some secret motive. I don't know, maybe she's Verity's mom. That Verity has talked about very little in her autobiography, but they did not have a good relationship. So maybe she got a lot of plastic surgery done and somehow plotted this whole job to be able to take care of her daughter and maybe killed her kids to see her daughter. I don't know, that one could use a little work, but I'm suspicious of you, April. Number 4, and possibly the most exciting theory, and if this was true, I would maybe consider this to be a 2-star book. So big improvement from the 0 stars it's sitting at right now. Lowen over here grew obsessed with Verity her whole life, her kids. She wanted all of it. So of course, she decided the best way to go about this was to take out the twins because she knew this would fracture their relationship. It would be hard for them to get along, and she was going to try to she was going to try to frame Verity for this. But Verity somehow got suspicious of her. So she did something and made Verity crash her car. And this would mean she also somehow knew that Verity liked her writing style and that Jeremy would hopefully hire her to come stay in the house together, all by their little lonesomes. Crew's still here and she's technically alive, so that didn't go to her plan. But anyways, she's now in the house, and she's just been a stalker of Jeremy for a very long time and has been obsessed with Verity's whole life and wanted to take it over, and this is her way of doing it. Yeah, I don't think that's actually the way it worked, but it would be really cool because we keep talking about how she writes from a villain's perspective, which is probably because her autobiography, she's the villain, I get it, whatever. But what if Colleen Hoover was writing from the villain's perspective? I think I have a great book idea if anybody wants it. But in all honesty, it's most likely something I haven't even thought of because I'm horrible at solving mysteries. I know this one will be so predictable and I'll be rolling my eyes when it's revealed most likely, but I'm not gonna figure it out unless I figured it out right now. Maybe we'll reconvene in a few chapters and we'll see if I have any more, but just expect to be disappointed by my sleuthing skills. I'm here to recap, not to predict. So I'm gonna get some more reading done and try to figure this out, maybe. Probably not. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you look at the bite marks and run your thumb over them? Why? No, Colleen, there has to be You have to draw the line somewhere with what you write. You can't. Oh. Okay. Good. Yes. Yay. Yay, bonding. Mommy issues. Okay. This is making more sense. Big news! Big breaking news! She likes one of her kids, only one. She still hates the other. Sorry, kiddo. You thought your mom had a favorite child? Luckily, your mom wasn't Verity, okay? It keeps getting worse. Guys, huge news about the dock. He's done working on it. Or tearing it down. I don't know. He's gonna start building something now, shortly. He'll be back working on his dock. Hello, good morning. I haven't even brushed my hair, cause who could be bothered when you have to get to a chapter about the crazy lady? What? It's like she wanted to write 2 completely different books, and she was like, ah, smash them together. Go for it. We'll see how that works. Again, the common theme with this book is me being bored but intrigued at the same time, and I don't know how she does that. And what is this? Okay. Alright. Oh! Sometimes I question how I got here. Hey. Oh, not her panties. No, you stop it right then. Whoa. Okay, sir. Thanks for the warning. You know, I was thinking before this, I was like, wow, the spice scenes really haven't been that bad. Honestly, I was expecting a lot worse from Colleen Hoover, but it was because the only spice we were getting was technically written by Verity, and it wasn't like really, it was like slightly open door, like there was a crack in the door. This was, the door is open, I'm in the room, and I want to leave. I shouldn't be in the room. Jimmy, get out. Get out. I'm almost free of this book. I'm almost free. We catch up with Lowen right after she finished that last chapter where Verity was like, yeah, my other child killed the other child and now I hate the other child because the other child is dead. Do you get it? We're there? Okay, great. Anyways, Lowen is now like, yeah, I think she's a sociopath or a psychopath. And because Colleen Hoover wanted to tell us, the reader, the difference between the two, she has Lowen just look up the definition of psychopath. No, we don't get the definition of sociopath, just psychopath. But let's go over that one. Because Miss Verity over here has almost every trait. Pathological liar. Check. Cunning and manipulative. Check. Lack of remorse. So far, check. Lack of empathy. Check. Shallow and emotional responses. Check. See, but the one big thing that doesn't line up is that normally psychopaths don't fall in love. And if they do fall in love, they don't stay in love that long, and she is still completely in love and obsessed with this man. At least according to the manuscript. She's just sat thinking here how he doesn't know that he's married to a psychopath. When a knock, guess who's at the door? That's right, Jeremy. His hair is damp from a shower, he's in his pajamas, and Lowen's like, oh my gosh, he is so hot right now. This is the hottest version of him. Anyways, he's not just here for her to thirst over right now. He actually came to get her help because he wants to get an aquarium tank out of their basement so that crew can get a turtle again because he's a little older and hopefully he won't kill this one. But see, the problem is he can't go and get it by himself in the basement because the basement door was installed backwards. So it opens into the basement, meaning if you're carrying something large and bulky, you can't really open the door and hold that thing. And I guess it's too big to fit on the stairs for him to put it down for a second, and leaving the door open, not an option. So they get to go down to the eerie basement together. Yay! She's just looking around at all the old stuff that's down there. There's a desk, there's a lot of paperwork. strewn across that desk, but it all seems to be Jeremy's luckily, so she doesn't have more Verity paperwork to go through. She also sees the baby monitor and she's like, oh yeah, the one that Verity would just unplug and let her kids cry all day while she got some much needed rest. She doesn't want to just sit here thinking about that though, so she's like, oh, Jeremy, did you used to work down here? He did. He actually used to own a realty firm, and so he worked from home a lot. At one point, I said he was a scrub, and I thought that meant, like, scrubs, like doctor scrubs, and I think that's just me being stupid, and I'm so sorry. He was never a nurse, doctor, whatever. Realty. He's selling houses and stuff. He eventually sold his own firm because, well, Verity's checks were making his look like chump change. So he became a stay-at-home dad, and he clearly liked the children more, so it made sense. He doesn't say that, I'm just implying that. He finds the aquarium, he plugs it in to check that it turns on properly. I don't know what turns on in this aquarium, but stuff turns on. And when he unplugs it, there's a little spark, and the breaker switches for some reason, causing the basement to go pitch black. She's freaking out. He's like, just put your hand on my shoulder, I'll lead you up the stairs, then you slip around me, open the door. That's what they do. They get up there, she opens the door. They are flooded with light. They are not trapped in the freaky basement like we all thought for a second, because they're perfectly fine and nothing actually scary ever happens in this book. She jumps out of that dark basement, slamming the door behind her like any sane person would. I still feel like a little kid when I have to come up from a dark basement. I am running up those stairs every time, because that demon back there is coming to get me. He can't help but laugh at this because it's just such a cute reaction. But in the light, he can see that this aquarium is covered in dust, and he's like, hey, can I use the master bathroom that is connected to her room? Because it has a bigger shower, it'll be easier to wash this aquarium out in. And she's like, yeah, of course. But she doesn't want to be stuck in the random master bathroom with him, so she's like, I'm gonna go to the office and do some more work. She honestly doesn't really get much done though, so when he comes back to tell her he's done in the bathroom, she just goes to her room and gets ready for bed. This is where she goes, I don't want to wear any of my own t-shirts, so she picks out a soft t-shirt that used to be Jeremy's. He lent some to her because remember, she was only going to be staying here a couple days, but now she's here for like 2 weeks, so she needed some extra clothes. So she puts on this shirt because it smells like him, it's so nice, and then she goes to the bed. Follow along with me here. Starts looking at all the teeth marks in the headboard. Just starts looking at all of them and starts to play out this fantasy of him doing stuff to her. But that stopped when she hears the creaking of Verity's hospital bed right above her. So obviously her next decision after trying to play out a fake fantasy with a fake Jeremy over here is to lay down on the bed like Verity does, just stare into space and think about how tough it would be to be stuck like this. So she's having a really normal evening. She does eventually fall asleep, but when she wakes up, she doesn't know where she is. And it's not like in the way she doesn't know that she's in somebody else's house. She knows that, but she's not in the same room of this house. She's looking around, she sees yellow wallpaper, like the one in Verity's room. And then the bed starts moving very mechanically. She is starting to tremble now, but convinces herself to actually look around and confirm she's in Verity's room. As she looks around, it's more and more confirmed, and she falls off the bed and scrambles to the wall with her eyes closed. She is going into full panic mode now, and when she opens her eyes, she sees Verity and screams. She covers her mouth because it's still the middle of the night, it's dark outside. She starts crying, she knows she must have sleptwalked all the way up here and doesn't know why she would sleepwalk into this room and lay on Verity's bed with her. She's sliding against the wall, trying to get to the door, trying to get out of this room. Once she's at the door, she opens it and starts running out. But Jeremy was out there and he wraps his arms around her, stopping her. He turns her to face him and just says, hey, and then notices how freaked out she is and loosens the grip he has on her. She takes this opportunity to bolt from him, runs down the stairs, runs into her room, and curls up on top of her quilt on the bed. And of course, just a little later, he comes rushing in the room. He kneels down right next to the bed and is trying to comfort her the best he can, but he doesn't know what just happened. He tries to ask her, but all she says is, I'm sorry. He's going, okay, for what? She eventually starts to explain the whole sleepwalking thing to him. He connects the dots that this is the reason she wanted a lock on her door. She wasn't scared of him, she was scared of her sleepwalking out of there, and he starts to comfort her saying, hey, sleepwalking is harmless. But she's just going, no, it's not. I've woken up outside before. I've turned on the oven before. I broke my hand in my sleep and didn't even feel it till I woke up. She decides in this moment she can't be trusted to stay here, so she gets up and starts packing her things. Eventually, he comes over and stops her, saying, "Sleepwalking is not a big deal." She just laughs and says, "I wish my mother would have felt that way." And he's probably thinking, oh great, therapy session time, here we go. Okay. Do you want to talk about it? She, in fact, does not want to talk about it, especially her mommy issues. He has to pull the, "Hey, I have a kid in the house, you're kind of freaking me out" card out to get her to actually open up about it. Being like, why are you scared of yourself? This is where we get the backstory of how she broke her wrist. Turns out one night, she unlocked the 3 locks that were on the inside of her childhood bedroom door, went outside, stood on the balcony railing for an hour straight, just stood there, shouldn't have been possible to stand there that long, and then eventually she just kind of jumped off of it, fell, you could see her wrist break and the blood coming out, but she used both of her hands to get back up and just walk back inside to her room like nothing had happened. She knows all of this because they had security cameras installed because they already knew about her sleepwalking. This whole situation made her wonder what she was capable of if she could do this to herself. And it didn't help when her mother moved further down the hall from her and added extra locks to her own door because she was scared of her own kid. He's telling her he's sorry that happened and he's sorry for the way her mother reacted, but they can find a way for her to feel comfortable sleeping in this house. And tells her there's nothing they can do about it tonight and she just needs to get some rest. She's obviously panicking again. She doesn't want to go back to sleep and he just tells her to lay down. And then he comes and lays down behind her and they're kind of spooning and he's like, "I'm not going to fall back asleep anyways. I'll stay here until you do fall asleep though." Now he doesn't really relax into cuddling this random girl he's known for a couple weeks at most. But he does stay there until 6 a.m. when he's pretty sure she's asleep. Newsflash, she's not asleep. In fact, she never fell back asleep, so the next day she is chugging coffees. She's going back to her office with the second coffee before 8 a.m. that morning when she almost runs into Jeremy, and they both say good morning. And then he asks how she would feel if he put a lock on the outside of her bedroom door. Run. Run right now. Get out of that house. Run. But she doesn't do that. She's like, "No, actually, yes, you should put a lock on the outside of my door that only you will be able to unlock and not me." He's thrilled by this plan, obviously, because he wants to murder her, I think. I don't know, probably not, but that's where my head is. And he also tells her to take a break today. She's like, "No, I'm not gonna take a break," but she's starting to feel kind of awkward because they're talking pretty close to each other in the hallway, and April has walked in the middle of this, and she's kind of looking at them. Jeremy just casually says good morning to her like they're doing nothing wrong. She doesn't say good morning as casually. I think it's more like, good morning, and then off to her office she goes. She's actually doing work on the outline for the 7th book in the series today. But then after she's done with that, she goes back to reading Verity's manuscript, of course, because that's why we're actually here. Can you see the sweat? Can you see the sweat? I'm so sweaty. We are now 6 months after the twins were born. She still hates them, but of course Jeremy loves them. One night, Verity has a dream where Harper kills Chasten, and she wakes up, crushed by the idea of this happening, and realizes she actually does love Chasten. But she still doesn't love Harper, no. Because Harper tried to kill her twin in a dream, so obviously her mother wouldn't love her after that. Verity has started crying over the realization that she loves one of her daughters now. Jeremy wakes up to this, and of course she can't just be like, "Oh, I'm crying because I actually love one of our children, but I still don't like the other one." So she starts doing some stuff to distract him. When they're almost done doing their thing, one of the babies has the audacity to start crying. Like babies do. Jeremy wants to check on them, but Verity just unplugs the monitor and says they'll be good for a second. And they finish what they were doing. And then after they're done, she's like, "I'll go check on them," because she actually wants to go bond with Chasten. She walks in, she's so excited to take care of her favorite daughter, but uh-oh, Harper's crying. And now she's fuming, because why is Harper crying? She wanted to hold Chasten, and actually that's what she does anyways, and just leaves Harper crying there. As she's bonding with Chasten and Harper's crying, she's just thinking about how one day she knows that Harper will kill Chasten because of her dream. It was apparently a premonition. So she puts Chasten back in her bed and then goes over to Harper's crib and starts thinking of ways to kill the baby. That will seem like an accident. She lands on shoving her fingers down the baby's throat, so it looks like the baby puked and then suffocated on her own puke. No, this is actually what Colleen Hoover came up with. I'm horrified. She's got her fingers down the little baby's throat. Luckily, Jeremy comes in and he's like, "She okay?" She obviously gets her fingers out of the baby's throat and starts acting like a concerned mom and is like, I don't know why I can't get her to stop crying. Well, maybe it's because you were trying to take her out of the world. Harper ends up puking all over Verity and starts wailing this cry they have never heard from her before. It's like somebody just tried to do something awful to her. He's really concerned about his kid and goes over to take care of her. And she's just upset because she just got puked on and he's not checking on her. And how dare he check on the kid who is crying her guts out right now. She just walks out and goes to get cleaned up. By the time she's done getting cleaned up, he's already taken care of Harper. She's back asleep. So she goes to climb back into the bed and she notices the baby monitor. And all she can think is, how could I be so stupid? How could I forget about that? What would he have done to me if he would have saw me doing that to Harper? How could she be so careless? No regret for trying to take out her own child, no. No, it's just regret because she thought she might have been caught by her husband for a second. After Lowen finishes this chapter, she is holding her stomach because she is so disgusted. And then goes on to tell us how in the next few chapters, Verity's references to the twins turns into her just saying Chasten. It takes till they are 3 years old for Verity to write about both of them again. From 6 months to 3 years, all she wrote about was Chasten. She's interrupted from her horrifying reading by a knock on the door. It's Jeremy coming in with tacos. They're her favorite. They discussed this in the grocery store trip and he got the stuff to make them and now he made them, so he's bringing them in because he cooked them. Good job. All she says is, oh, it's time to eat? And he has to explain, yeah, it's actually well past time to eat. It's 10 o'clock at night. But hey, do you want to bring the tacos outside and watch a meteor shower with me? So that's what she does because she is starting to also grow a slight obsession with this man. She eats her tacos. She watches the meteor shower with him. Eventually she goes out and lays on the grass to watch the meteor shower from the lawn. And he eventually joins her out there. So they're just laying not like right next to each other, but next to each other enough where it's like, oh, it's friendly, but not romantic, you know? They start talking about all sorts of stuff. Like how his parents are dead, why him and Verity moved out here, when he's gonna go back to work, how Verity's parents are super religious and ended up cutting them out of their lives because of her books. Her parents even told Jeremy when he called about the news of her wreck, this is after the death of both of her children. So he called them to let them know their daughter was really badly injured, and they said, God punishes the wicked. I'm sorry, what kind of cult church are you going to because I don't want to go there? And as a Christian myself, it doesn't say these people are Christians, but I feel like it's kind of implied. But, let me make this clear. This is not most Christians. I don't think this is technically any Christians, if I'm being honest. I don't know what type of cult these people are in. But they need to go find some real Jesus. Moving on from that, there's a lull in the conversation, so he props himself up on his elbow, looking down at her, and he's like, should I put my child back in therapy? The answer is yes. And thank goodness, she simply says, yes, like she should. Then he asks her if she went to therapy for her sleepwalking stuff. She did go to therapy, she had a great experience, but her mother didn't go, and that clearly shows. Because her and her mom never really connected the same way after the incident of her breaking her wrist when she was sleepwalking. She's rambling on about her mom and is about to compare her mother to Verity when she cuts herself off because she realized that would be kind of messed up. But he asks, who are you about to compare her to? And she's like, oh, the main character in Verity's novels. He buys this because, again, he never read any of them besides the first book. And we learn he stopped reading them because he couldn't imagine all of that coming from his wife's brain. Buddy, you don't know your own wife. It's scary up in that brain. He keeps talking, and he even explains that Verity used to get mad at him for not reading her manuscripts, but he didn't understand why because she got so much validation from everybody else. Her agent, her fans, more of her fans. And he didn't understand why she needed his validation. It's because she was obsessed with you, buddy. Obsessed. He then again turns this question on her and is like, oh, where do you get your validation from? She explains, she doesn't. Her books aren't popular. The only people she's ever had reached out are fans that emailed her, but she doesn't do any, in-person events, so she doesn't have a chance to meet any of her readers. But she can't help but think that it would feel really nice to hear from somebody that her writing meant something to them. Our introverted girl wants the attention off of her, so she asks him when he's planning to start on rebuilding the dock, because he finished taking down the dock finally. He's not gonna build another dock though, he just hated looking at the other one, so he took it down. Obviously. This is when they just start staring at each other, and then he starts looking at her lips, but eventually he rolls back down, laying flat on the ground. When she asks what he's thinking about, he says, I'm thinking I should lock you in your room. for the night. It's getting late. What an insane thing to say. Like, I know there's a lock on her door, buddy, but you didn't have to be that creepy about it. Why were you that creepy about it? She only laughs because, haha, what a funny sentence. You don't know this man well enough for that to be a funny sentence, honey. But she goes inside. She makes a quick stop at the office, grabs her laptop, and the last couple chapters of Verity's book, in case she wants to read them tonight. They're saying goodnight at her door when he goes, "Lo, I lied to you." And I'm going, oh no, what did you lie about? But the lie was just that Verity wasn't the one that read her books. He was. And he was the one who recommended her name to the agents. So he tells her, to her face, that her writing matters to him, and then closes the door. No time to dwell on that. Back to Verity's manuscript. She's making dumplings for Jeremy because he's been cold to her ever since she put the kids in daycare without talking to him about it. And she has one single thing she wants from this man, and we all know what that is, okay? I'm not gonna spell it out for you. They're eating dinner together, but he's on his phone, so she starts talking about how Chasten has learned 7 new colors this week. He confirms that she said Chasten and then just drops his phone on the table and stares at her. So she asks him, why are you mad? He does the classic thing and he says, I'm not mad, even though he's clearly mad. She calls him out for this, calling him pathetic and that he should just own up to it and be a real man. And this is when he slaps his bowl of dumplings off the table and sends them splashing onto the wall. And then he just stomps out of the room. She's just standing there like, what? And now I have to clean up these freaking dumplings so I look really nice. So she goes, she cleans up these dumplings, and then she goes to their room to talk to him some more. He's just pacing back and forth in there. But when she comes in, he starts ranting about how all she ever talks about is Chasten. She never talks about Harper. Yeah, she still doesn't give a crap about Harper. But she starts talking about how she only treats Harper differently because that's what Harper wants. And then to prove she's actually been paying attention to more than just Chasten, she's like, oh, the daycare worker told me that Harper may have Asperger's and we should get her looked at for that. Yeah, the daycare worker told this a few weeks ago, but she just remembered to bring it up now, and she's just happy she did because it makes her look good. He's starting to get all worried about this, and she tells him, calm down, it's okay, I already called a specialist, and they're gonna call me back as soon as they have an appointment available. She never called a specialist. She's gonna call the specialist tomorrow. They make up. She mentions that maybe it's time for him to just stay home and not work anymore. He pushes back on this, and then she's like, well, it's gonna be really expensive to put 3 kids through daycare. And he's so excited about this because this means she's pregnant. Yay! She's not pregnant. No, she's not pregnant at all. She just said this because she wanted him to be really happy and because he loves her so much when she's pregnant. So her plan right now is to just hopefully get pregnant within the week, and if that doesn't happen, she's just going to fake a miscarriage. We obviously know this is Crew, though, so she does get pregnant within that week. Anyways, back to Lowen's point of view. It's been about a week. She's read more and more of this manuscript, but all it really talks about is these two doing it in many, many different ways, because that's her favorite thing to talk about. It gets to a point where she's getting jealous of their relationship that she's just reading about when she's not dating this man, so she starts skimming those chapters. Good news, though, she did finish the outline of the 7th book today and sent that to Verity's agents to get that approved. She also sent it to Corey to ask what he thought about it. Going back to that 1 week time skip, yes, that does mean it's been about 2 weeks now. They have processed her advance. She's just waiting for it to hit her account. So she should be able to leave any day now. And at this point, the outline's submitted. She has everything she needs, so she decides to just take a day off. There isn't really anything else for her to do in this moment. So she goes to the kitchen, she pops herself some popcorn, and then she sits down on the couch and watches HD TV. He eventually comes down the stairs, plops himself down on the couch next to her, starts eating some of the popcorn, and she starts filling him in about how she got the outline submitted and thanks him for letting her stay here so long, longer than she probably should have. And he says, I don't think you've stayed long enough. Run, 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 run. But Lowen obviously doesn't care about this. And she's just thinking, wow, he really wants me. And I mean, do his vows really matter when his wife is in this state? Because apparently, Lowen saw the in sickness and in health and thought, yeah, after a few months and they're showing no progress, you're gonna cheat on your wife. They chit-chat some more. He asks her if she's ever been married. She hasn't. Then he asks her how old she is. And she's like, haha, you're never gonna believe this. I turn 32 tomorrow. Now, at the start of this chapter, she was going on and on about how she didn't want anybody to know it was her birthday. But the second somebody asks anything hinting towards a possible birthday, she gives it up so easily. So I think you did want somebody to know. I think you were lying to me. How rude, I'm in your head. Tell me the truth. This man instantly runs to the kitchen and is like, I gotta start baking a cake. She goes in there as well, and they just chit-chat while he bakes this cake, and when it's done, he tells her to go back into the living room and wait, because he needs to make it official with the coming out with the cake, lit with the birthday candles, and singing happy birthday to her. She goes back to the living room, and then right at midnight, he comes out singing happy birthday very softly with the cake. He gets to the couch, he sits down with her, she's eating some of the cake. It's a great time. And then bam, they're finally making out. Now, do I root for people to cheat on their partners in books? No. But these two have been dragging this out for so long, and I don't care about any of these characters in this book, so fine, go make out. I don't care if it's morally right, because I don't know. I don't know. Also, Verity really sucks. Her shirt eventually comes off, and he's doing things that are normally under the shirt. And then she opens her eyes at one point, and Verity is just standing at the top of the stairs. The top of the stairs. She pushes him off, just saying, Verity, Verity, Verity. Ah! He just slides off, thinking she's panicking and bringing up his wife to get him to stop. And he's like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She's shaking at this point, and he's just still apologizing. And she has to explain, no, he doesn't need to apologize for making out with her. She's not freaked out about that. She's freaked out because his wife, who hasn't moved at all, was just standing at the top of the stairs, staring at them. Jimmy just goes, she can't walk. But she is adamant about this, and he realized she's telling the truth. She saw Verity in some form, whether that was just because she's going a little crazy right now or because Verity was really there, he doesn't know. So he goes up the stairs to go check, and she follows right behind him to go check. And guess what? They get up to the room because it's probably been at least a couple minutes since she was standing at the top of the stairs. They go in, she's back on her bed asleep. Yeah, of course she could be asleep even if she was faking. You took too long. But apparently they don't think this, and she just apologizes. No, she had enough time to get back to that room. But she chalks it up to her just not having enough sleep. They end up just both laying on her bed because she's not going to be able to sleep in a room by herself right now. And he's like, okay, I can stay till you fall asleep again. They're just laying there. She's trying to relax, but she can't. So she eventually asks, is there a way she could be faking her injuries? He assures her there's no way she could be doing that because he saw the scans of her brain. Cut to the next day. She's in the office once again. He comes in and he's like, hey, I put a lock on the outside of Verity's door as well. And honestly, this just freaks her out more because this means in some way he actually kind of believes her and doesn't think she's just completely insane. So the one thing she can think to do to get a better read on if Verity would fake these injuries is to continue reading that manuscript. In this chapter, she's just talking about the nanny they have, how Jeremy is with the kids and he works around the property a lot. She also talks about how she will fake trips to New York for like business because whenever she gets back from trips, they have a great time. But she actually doesn't need to go to New York. She just stays in a random Airbnb that isn't that far away from their house. And life was going great for her until it wasn't, because one day she was scrubbing a dead chicken, a raw dead chicken, when they got the call that Chasten had died. So what happened to Chasten? Well, her and Harper were over at a friend's house having a sleepover. This mother that was hosting the sleepover was very knowledgeable about Chasten's allergies and hid all the food containing peanuts in the house. She also had her EpiPen. The mom was trained on how to use the EpiPen before Chasten was allowed to stay over there. But it turns out the girls that night snuck into the pantry, grabbed a bunch of snacks, and apparently Chasten ate something with peanuts because the next morning when they tried to wake her up, she didn't wake up. He doesn't even believe his daughter is truly gone until they get to the hospital and they don't take him to a room, they take him to the family room. That's the room they put you in to be like, hey, sorry, they're dead. He's sobbing, she's sobbing. Everybody's sobbing, but she swears every time she looked at Harper after this day, she could see the guilt radiating off of her. She just knows that Harper maliciously fed her sister peanuts so she would die, just like in her dream, which is not what happened in her dream, but you know, Harper killed her in her dream, so obviously that means Harper killed her in real life. So, Verity did not murder Chasten, but Harper, baby, you better watch out. Babe, I know it's already in the past, but honey, I'm telling you, you gotta watch out for her. Your mom's crazy. Lowen finishes this chapter and then walks out to the living room to chill out, only to realize that Verity is there. April says she brought her down because Verity still had a lot of energy that evening, so it would be good for her to not just be in her bed. So now, Jeremy will put her to bed later. So she's just sitting in the living room watching Wheel of Fortune. Lowen decides now is the time to test Verity on if she's faking it or not. She's in the hallway. She's just watching Verity. So she grabs a wooden fruit from a bowl that's just right there and chucks it right in front of Verity. And Verity doesn't even flinch. See, but the thing is, Verity isn't paralyzed. She's just in the mindset of an infant, basically. So a loud noise surely should make her flinch still, right? But she's not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. We don't know the answer to that, but it doesn't seem like she shouldn't have done nothing. Lowen's like, screw this, and goes into the kitchen to cook some spaghetti for Crew and Jeremy because she said she would cook for them this evening. Remember, this is still her birthday because they started celebrating her birthday at midnight last night. So she's cooking her own birthday dinner over here, but she wanted to, I think. She's cooking for a little bit, having a grand old time, not really, but then she notices she doesn't hear the TV anymore. She calls out for Jeremy, praying he's in the living room and he's the one who turned the TV off, but he doesn't respond. So she walks out to the living room. The TV is still on, but it's muted now. TVs don't randomly mute. I've never had a TV do that to me. At this point, Lowen has had it with Verity, and she walks over to her and goes, "You effing C-word," and then unmutes the TV and tosses the remote on the couch out of Verity's reach. And then she kneels down before Verity and starts saying, "You don't deserve the body you're trapped in. I hope you choke on your own puke one day, in the same way you attempted to kill your own baby." Verity shows no reaction to this. Lowen is trying to get a rise out of her. She's trying to say anything to get Verity to actually react, to prove that Verity is still basically all the way there. So Lowen gets up and she whispers in Verity's ear about how Jeremy is going to screw her tonight in her bed. Verity seems to have no reaction to this, but then she notices that Verity is peeing her pants. At this moment, Jeremy walks in asking if she needed anything because she called for him earlier, and she's like, yeah, Verity needs to be changed. Jeremy comes down, gets Verity upstairs to get her changed, get her showered, and get her put to bed. And Lowen's just left there thinking, wow, some part of Verity is still in there. Babe, I think a large part of Verity is still in there. To be able to do that right after you said that to her? I don't think that's a coincidence, honey. He's busy taking care of his wife, so Verity spends her birthday dinner with Crew, just eating spaghetti. She ends up getting Crew all the way ready for bed, and starts washing dishes by the time Jeremy is done taking care of Verity. He comes in, he's apologizing for missing dinner and all that, and she's like, you didn't miss it, there's still food, you can grab some right now. As he's heating up the leftovers, he asks her what's wrong because clearly something is upsetting her. And she's trying to do the, oh no, it's not my place, and he goes, no, tell me. She's like, no, it's not my place, and he still says, tell me. So she says, I just feel bad for you. And he goes, don't, I can't change anything. She starts going on about how he can let Verity live in a facility that she would have full-time care in. Him and Crew can get out of this house that is haunting them and live pretty normal lives. But he doesn't want to do that because Crew just lost his two sisters, and if they put Verity in a home where he would barely ever see her, it would really be like losing Verity. At least here, this kid still has his mom around all the time. She throws out the option that they could put Verity in a facility during the week so he could get a job, have a normal life during the week, and then have her at the house for Crew to be around when he's off from school anyways. So they would still get to spend quite a bit of time together. That way, Jeremy can do what he wants. All he says to this is, what I want? And she asks, what do you want? And I mean, you'll never guess what this man says. You'll never guess it in a million years. It's not totally predictable. He says, I want you. Wow. Wow, amazing. Whoa. Wow. They start making out. They get to her room. They get undressed. They start doing a lot of stuff for a long time. Eventually, she too has added her teeth mark to the headboard. Oh, and did I mention he doesn't have a condom and she doesn't have birth control? Mind you, they're both in the mindset that this is gonna be like a little fling. Why would you do this? This is just dumb. But he swears he can pull out really, really well. Hey, buddy, that's not an actual preventative now, is it? They eventually finish up in the bed and they go to take a shower and they start doing it again because what else would they do? And then they get back to the bed and they go for round 3 at this point, round 25. I don't know. They've been doing a lot of stuff. Finally, they're tuckered out, and so they're just chilling, talking there like an early stage couple, talking about all the little things in life. But we get to catch up with them when they start talking about their past relationships. She starts talking about her past relationship with Corey. He's like, wow, I'm actually jealous of that. And she starts laughing and she's like, trust me, you don't have to be. And then she asks about Verity and how their relationship was. Well, apparently he felt like his relationship with Verity was always missing something. Of course, their sex life was great. But in his words, Their worlds never connected, but he never got that. Until one day, he was in a random coffee shop bathroom with a random girl he just met, and he felt that connection. I'm sorry, this just leads me to ask, did he kind of buy her? Like, he paid her $500,000 just to get her to his house for a couple weeks. I feel like this might have been his plot the whole time. I'm just saying, this seems mighty similar to those Wattpad stories we all read back in the day. All of us, surely all of us. Don't blame this just on me. Anyways, all she was really missing is the messy bun and coming down the stairs, but what type of book did you write, Colleen? Anyways, getting back on the topic of this book, they eventually drift off to sleep. But he wasn't supposed to fall asleep in here in case Crew woke up and needed him. It would be pretty bad if Crew found him in here with this other random girl. Well, not random, but like, not his mother. So he wakes up startled and is like, oh, shit. He rushes over to the door, tries to open it, but somebody has locked it from the outside. He's thinking, oh, Crew just did this. This is a really bad joke. So he starts calling out for Crew. But then she asks, did you lock Verity's room last night? Yeah, he doesn't remember if he actually did that or not. He doesn't know. He's still calling for Crew, hoping he'll come and help them, even if Verity is the one that did this. But she's like, if Verity did this, Crew probably isn't here. This sends him into a full-on panic, and he goes over, breaks the window open, and gets in through the front door. I guess they have a spare key or something. I don't know. But he gets in, he unlocks the door for Lowen, and then he rushes up the stairs. She's right behind him. They get up there, and both Crew and Verity are asleep in their rooms. They're just asleep. So who locked the door? Who locked the door? While they've both been upstairs, April has walked in, and she just looks between the both of them. Jeremy doesn't say anything for her and just goes stomping outside. And Lowen is just like, it was a rough night with Crew, because somebody needs to explain something to April on why they were looking that frantic up there. Then she goes straight to Verity's office to finish the last chapter of her manuscript, because she needs to know how this ends at this point. And once she's done with it, she's pretty set on giving it to Jeremy so he can know his wife like she knows his wife. But Lowen over here, before we can get to the book, she's got to tell us that she's got a feeling that the other shoe is about to drop because, well, after all, this is a house full of chronics. Oh yes, she made sure that word came back. She made sure it wasn't just a one-off. No, it's a house full of chronics. People who have chronically bad things happening to them. You know who has chronically bad things happening to them? Me! Chronic illnesses! Stop stealing my word. Colleen, stop trying to make chronics happen! Anyways, this chapter starts in the morning of the day that Harper died. Chasten has been gone for exactly 6 months. Jeremy is sleeping upstairs at this point because Crew cries pretty often for him, wanting his father. His papa! And Verity at this point is pretty much over Chasten's death. It still hurts a little bit, but really her main concern is that they've only done it 4 times since their daughter has died 6 months ago. And she doesn't understand why Jeremy is still so upset about this. The other thing that's really bothering her is that Harper still hasn't cried once about Chasten passing away. And to Verity, this means that Harper is definitely guilty of it. So she has made her own child a murderer in her head. This day, she snaps at Harper because Harper was just laughing with her little brother. And she goes, do you even care about your sister? You haven't cried once. And this is when Harper starts crying and goes running upstairs. Jeremy is up there. He hears her go into her room and cry and asks Verity what happened. And Verity's like, oh, well, she just wanted to go down to the lake and I told her no. He tells her she should take the kids to the lake while he goes to the grocery store. She's trying to get out of it, being like, okay, I'll go to the grocery store. You take them to the lake. And he's like, no, you need to get outside with the kids. So he goes off to the grocery store and she goes down to the lake with the kids. They get down there. The kids are having a great time. Shay's looking at the canoe that Crew was conceived in because, of course, she needed to tell us that. She's also thinking about how much she missed their life before they had children. And this causes a whole slippery slope, an avalanche, and leads her to getting the 2 kids into the canoe, going out decently far in the lake, and then purposely tipping the canoe over, grabbing Crew, swimming back to shore with them as she listens to her daughter drown behind her. No, I'm not joking. She listens to her daughter suffer probably one of the worst deaths, at least in my mind. By the time her and Crew make it to shore, Harper has been under the water for a few minutes now. And Crew is hysterical, being like, Mom, we have to go back for her, trying to go back for her himself. And she realizes to make this look like an accident, she needs to play the part of a concerned mom. So she's like, okay, Crew, you go in, you call Dad and the police and get them to come here. And then she starts swimming back out into the lake, acting like she's looking for her daughter. But in fact, she's actually just hoping she doesn't feel her daughter while she's swimming out there. She's hoping that her daughter doesn't grab onto her. She goes so far as to going into the canoe that's flipped over to check if Harper was hanging on the inside of there, because there's that air pocket in canoes if you were ever to flip over in one, and you would have the ability to hold on to something. She ducks under, and when she sees Harper isn't there, she thinks, thank God. Oh? What an insanely messed up. It's so messed up. I don't even have the words to describe how insane that is to think. She doesn't stop pretending to look for Harper until the police get there and drag her out of the water. And then she continues to play this distressed mom part, crying out, Harper, Harper, my baby, my little girl. Like the perfect desperate mom. At one point, she sees Jeremy fly by her and dive into the water off the dock to start looking for Harper as well. By the time they find Harper, she has been under the water for 30 minutes. She was wrapped up in a fishing net. It may be one that Jeremy lost last fishing season, and this might be the only reason she actually died, because it sounds like Harper may have been able to swim to shore. She's not sure. But yeah, Harper isn't alive anymore. He's holding his dead daughter, just saying, I love you, Harper, I love you, Harper. And Verity comes beside him and just starts saying, I tried to save her. Still playing the part of the distressed mom and not the murderer. Jeremy goes, he climbs into the ambulance with his deceased daughter and rides to the hospital with her, not even looking at Verity while he does this. And this is not the reaction she expected, because right before he left to the grocery store, it sounded like he was hinting that they were going to have a good time in bed tonight. And honestly, since they already have one dead kid, does a second dead kid really make a difference? No. He was already filled to his brim with grief, obviously. This won't restart the cycle or anything of grief. So yeah, he actually does have a reaction, and he starts to shut down again. That right here leaves me with about 50 pages left of this book. I'm unsure what's about to be revealed in the last 50 pages, but I'm sure it's about to be a lot of messed up stuff. I'm sure about it. So let's go over a few more of my theories, because we kind of know some stuff, but not really. We know that Chasten just died unfortunately. Like, it was an accident, it sounds like. Verity blames her other daughter, but that's Verity. She's not a reliable narrator. I think it was an accident. But we do know that Verity killed her other daughter on purpose. Dead. She did that on purpose. Malicious intent. So why is she now faking these injuries? What led her to her car crash? Because let's be honest, it wasn't guilt. Was it because she wanted Jeremy to pay more attention to her and she wasn't getting enough attention after her daughters died because he was so distraught and just wanted to look after his one remaining child that's alive? Maybe. Or was it because Jeremy found out and she didn't want to live without Jeremy, so she decided to fake a car wreck to make it look like she was really injured? That way, Jeremy couldn't get rid of her. And she would at least still be in the presence of him. And maybe even April over here, who claims she didn't know Verity before this accident, which is a really weird thing for an author to randomly mention in their book. Like, that's not a normal conversation with a nurse. Did you know this person before it happened? That's not a normal thing you ask. So maybe these two have a connection before. And she faked the records for her to make it really look like she was really badly injured, so Jeremy would really be forced to take care of her. Can you tell I just like drawing with the red marker? It's really fun. Or, Jeremy could have had the accident happen to her on purpose, and he meant to kill her, but it didn't work. So now he's stuck with his wife like this, and now he just continues to drug her every night, so she stays in this state, but obviously she can walk around, so I don't really believe that one. Or who knows? Lowen could have something to do with this, and she could have caused the wreck for Verity because she wanted to be with Jeremy. I don't think that's an actual... All that to say, I don't know what's about to happen. I never do with mystery books. Even authors I know really well, I can't figure out mysteries, even the simplest ones. I know, I'm stupid, but I don't look for clues. I don't do it. I'm not Blue's Clues. I'm just here to read the chaos of her book. Oh, dang it. One more time. I'm just here to read the chaos of her book. There we go. There's a little red for you. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna go get some more reading done, and we're gonna Finally, be done with this Colleen Hoover book. Thank goodness.
Okay, that's cool.
Guys, there's so many other problems we should be going over right now. Your relationship does not matter.
Colleen Hoover just wanted to be like, I know this word and you don't, so I'll put the definition in the book so I feel smarter than all of you. Good for you, Colleen.
She's obsessed with eyeballs. What in the Disney princess? Oh. Y'all are never gonna believe what I just read. Y'all are never gonna believe what I just read. Ugh. Oh my gosh. We've mentioned this one object too many times. Get out of the freaking house, you idiot. This is the dumbest character I've ever read. And I went through Farah going, me plus Tamlin equals 2. So the answer is 2 to a riddle that had nothing to do with her and Tamlin. Oh, girl. Okay. Ooh, this is crazy. I was kind of right. I'll explain how in a second, but there's also more going on still. Just in case I'm right, I do want this on video. Did he fake write Verity's manuscript, or at least the last little chapter? I don't know. No. No, it's actually so creepy. I'm disappointed. Are we shocked? No. What? Oh gosh. Oh, a long letter. I hate this type of font in books. This is so dumb. Dear Jamie. I did it. I finished the book. I took a few days to process, and now I'm here to recap the last 50 pages of this book for you, because it was a little insane. And that's all I'm gonna say. We're with Lowen right after she learned that Verity killed her own child, and she is currently throwing up because she is so disgusted. And she's just trying to figure out what she needs to do now. Does she call the police, tell Jeremy? Both of those are very valid options, I think. But she decides to take a Xanax and nap. And I guess fair enough. I don't know what you're meant to do in this situation. This is not a situation anybody will ever find themselves in. She's woken up by Jeremy in her room. He explains that April took Verity and crew to the park, so they're the only ones in the house right now. And, well, they take advantage of it, obviously, even though she just learned that his wife killed their kids. Oh, also, he climbed through the window he broke earlier because she locked her door. I just find it funny that he was like, oh yeah, this is a logical option. Not knocking, no, climb through the broken window. Let's do that. So they're making out, and eventually she says, you smell like Pete Richard. Pete Richard. And he asks, what does that mean? What do I smell like? Because like anybody else, he doesn't know what that word means. He hasn't ever heard that word before. You know what that means? It means that he smells like fresh rain after warm weather. You couldn't have just said fresh rain? No. We had to say Pete Richard.
Petrichor.
Somebody take the dictionary calendar away from this girl, please. I know she's a writer, but she don't need to be using those words. And you also don't need to be using those words. But he then asks her if there's a word for what he's doing right now, which is falling for another woman when he shouldn't be. She goes, probably, but also, what the heck? I mean, it's good that he's falling for me, but he does feel guilty about it, which isn't great. And she's absolutely correct. He does feel guilty about it, but he don't feel guilty enough to stop, and he says that. She points out that this will have to stop at some point, though, because she has to get back to New York at some point, and he's going to be stuck here taking care of his wife. This is when he starts explaining that he actually thought about what she was saying about putting Verity in a full-time care facility, and he's going to do that. So throughout the weekday, she will be at this facility, and then 3 weekends out of every month, she will be at home so crew can also get to spend time with her. But this opens up their schedule so they can live a more normal life. And as he is explaining all this, Lowen is telling us how she sees the grief evaporating from him and this house. Like some sort of Disney princess movie. I just see golden sparkles going through the house and it's making it so pretty and sparkly and pristine. And this is the moment that she decides she will not be telling him about this manuscript that would give him definite answers on what happened to his daughter. Because what would that really do besides open fresh wounds? I mean, possibly they would stop letting Verity live in the house with them and taking care of her, especially when you keep seeing her look at you. This would point to that she's completely insane and might be capable of doing something like this. But no, let's not tell anybody. Keep the peace. Until you're dead, I guess. While she's going through all this, he asks, do you want to stay another week? And of course our girl says yes. She's gonna stay in the creepy house with the creepy lady for another week. And to say yes, she says okay, and he goes, you mean all right? Shut up. Just shut up. They then start really doing some stuff, and then he sneaks out the window again before anybody gets home. Mind you, he could have unlocked the door, but no, he went to go back out the window, which he broke, so I feel like there's jagged edges of glass that he could easily cut himself on, but nope. Just sliding out the window. And she's left just laying there thinking, he deserves somebody better than Verity that will put her love for his children above everything else. So they just finished doing it. She grabs a pillow, props herself up so gravity can assist things from not going out of her body. And she is now doing the exact opposite of birth control. Well, what it normally does, at least. I don't know if this is how science works, but she's trying to make sure her eggs are fertilized. After she's done this, she falls back asleep and she dreams of a teenage Crew and just sees this evil look in his eyes because of everything that happened to him as a child. And this convinces her even more that she shouldn't share this manuscript because if Crew really knew the evils of his mother, this would mess him up even more. Which is kind of valid. Later that day, it's just her and Crew in the kitchen. She's snacking on some peanut butter and crackers. He's playing a game on his iPad. She checks on what game he's playing because she's really hoping it's not GTA 6. GTA 6, that's not out yet. GTA. She's hoping it's not that or some other really violent game, but he's just playing Toy Blast. And she's like, okay, maybe he won't turn into a crazy murderer when he grows up like his mother. Eventually, this kid hones into the snacks and crawls across the table to get to them. She gives him the peanut butter and cracker. He eats it. He's licking the knife with the peanut butter on it, which is completely valid. Let's be honest. We've all done it. We all still do it. Lowen, at this moment, decides this is a great time to interrogate the child. So she asks if they ever had a canoe. Yes, they did. She asks if they played on it. Yes, they did. Then she asks him if he remembers being on the canoe with his mother when Harper died. Crew just stares at her. Just stares. So she scoots closer to the child and asks, why did the boat tip? And this child says, my mommy told me I shouldn't talk to you if you ask me questions about her. Lowen, get out of the house. Get out of the house real now. It's not funny. It's not a joke. It's not any sort of joke at this point. Why would he tell him that if she couldn't currently talk because she didn't know you existed before this? Get out of the house. But no, she has to stay to confirm that this was Verity talking to him. And he just goes rigid and stares at her. So yes, you have your confirmation, pack your bags, get out. Actually, forget the bags, just get in your little rented Kia Soul and drive out of that house, out of that town. Never come back. Stop writing the books. I don't care. He's trying to keep the secret for his mom, who's apparently pretending to be bedbound over here. And he's stressing out that this random lady is asking him questions, so he's biting down on the knife, and it slips in between his teeth, and blood starts gushing from his mouth. She screams for Jeremy. He makes it downstairs, figures out what happened, and then gets Crew to the car so he can take him to the ER to get stitches. Lowen is getting in the car with Jeremy and them, and he's like, I can't leave Verity here alone, and April already left, so she has to stay in the house by herself with Verity. And of course, she doesn't want to stay alone in the house by herself with Verity because it was basically just confirmed to her that Verity is faking this for some reason. So the first thing she does is run upstairs, check on Verity. She's still in her room. She then locks the door on the outside of Verity's room, then runs downstairs to try to find that baby monitor that she remembers seeing in the basement when they were down there to get that aquarium. But she notices while she's down there, all the boxes are moved around, and she's pretty sure this was probably done by Verity. She doesn't know for certain, but what if she was looking for something down there? She finds the baby monitor and rushes back upstairs. She gets the monitor plugged into a computer, so that's turned on, and then she goes up the other side of stairs to put the camera in her room. Verity's room. But before she rushes up those stairs, she makes her first smart decision and grabs a knife from the kitchen. She gets this camera set up. And then she goes over to get Verity's legs back on the bed because it looks like Jeremy left in a rush and her legs were just hanging off, and she's like, fine, I don't know, maybe she is actually bedbound and I should put her legs back on the bed. So she does that and then backs out of the room with her knife and runs back downstairs to stare at the monitor until Jeremy gets back. It's been a couple hours at this point. There has still been no movement from Verity. She's going insane at this point just watching this. So she decides to read the final chapter of the manuscript while she's here. This final chapter is just 2 days after Harper died. She's talking about how the police interrogated her to make sure she wasn't responsible for her child's death, and she's like, that's completely reasonable, but I just played my part of really concerned mom, really upset mom really well, and they didn't suspect anything of me. But Jeremy, for some reason, still does. Crew has been sleeping in their room, in their bed, in between them since the accident with the twins, and the one night she asked to cuddle with Jeremy, he puts Crew on the other side of himself, as if he's protecting Crew from her. And then he starts asking her question after question after question. Why did you take the canoe out? Why no life jackets? What was the last thing she said? Did you know the canoe was about to tip? She answers all of these, making herself seem innocent, and he's like, it just doesn't make sense. Why would you tell Crew to hold his breath then? And in this moment, right here, she knows there is no way for them to go back to what they used to were. He will always doubt her, as he should. All she says to defend herself, to try to keep him in the slightest bit, is, I told him this as we were tipping. In response to this, he just rolls over and wraps his arms around Crew, further protecting him from his own mother. She's doing her best not to cry, but eventually she gets up, goes to her office to write this chapter of the book. As she's writing this, she has no clue what will happen now, or what Jeremy will do. She just hopes that he'll remember all the good times they had together, and believe her, even though she's lying to him. But if he's just going to report her to the police, she writes, if that's the case, so be it. I'll just drive myself into a tree. The end. And if you don't remember, Verity ended up like this because she drove herself into a tree. So I guess she decided to commit to the bit. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm out. Lowen has no time to process all of this because at that moment, Jeremy pulls into the garage with Crew. And she starts to wonder how this man could live in the same house as somebody who killed his own daughters. Because he suspected her. But she gets up, she goes to greet Jeremy, he's holding Crew. He explains that they had to put a few stitches in his mouth and also gave him a lot of medicine, so he is out right now. So he takes him upstairs to put him to bed. While she waits for him to get back down so they can talk a little more, she makes some coffee and heads back to the office to continue watching the monitor. But when she gets to the office, she drops her coffee because on the monitor, Verity is on her hands and knees on the floor. She starts screaming for Jeremy, and she watches as Verity's head tilts as she's hearing the noise, and then she crawls back to her bed. She continues calling out for Jeremy as she goes up the stairs, but she goes straight to Verity's room, yelling, "Get up, I saw you." She even starts pulling her out of the bed, trying to get her to move. Jeremy runs in, grabs her, and asks what the hell is going on. She's saying, she's faking it. I know she's faking it. He gets her out of Verity's room, locks the door, and heads downstairs, dragging her. But she's still freaking out, telling him not to leave Crew up there. But he's not listening. He just takes her to her room, gets her suitcase, starts packing her things, and says, I want you to leave. She's trying to convince him just with her words, but eventually she says, I know you think she killed Harper, and I can prove it. She leads him to Verity's office, where she hands him the manuscript, saying, read it. He takes it and asks, where did you get this? She explains, this manuscript is Verity's, and it goes over their whole entire lives together from the moment they met. But he's still not convinced by this, so her last hope is just saying, please, you deserve this. He goes off to his room to presumably read this manuscript, and she can tell when he's read at least the last chapter, because she hears a crash and then crying from his room. Then she hears footsteps, a door open, and he's going to Verity's room, saying, Verity. She still is committing to the bit. So he says, if you don't answer me, I'm going to call the police. But she's still committing to this bit hard, and it's starting to seem like maybe he doesn't believe this manuscript. But as he's about to walk out the door, he says, as soon as I leave this room, I'll be handing over your manuscript to the police. And they will put you away, and you will never see Crew again, if you don't open your eyes and tell me what's going on. And then Verity opens her eyes. Whoa, big shock. None of us saw that coming. Wow. He just goes, what the Verity. Lowen is still seeing all of this through the monitor and can see Verity shaking, saying, I had to, looking terrified. Then we see Jeremy punch the door. She's asking him not to hit her and that she'll explain everything. He goes over to her and is saying, oh, don't hurt you? You killed our kid. She's been trying to slowly get off the bed, but he goes over, pushes her back onto the bed, is holding her down. They're kind of wrestling at this point. But eventually, he is strangling her. She's doing her best to fight back, but she is very much overpowered. Lowen at this point rushes up the stairs, telling him to stop because if he kills her this way, the police will know he did it, and he will never see Crew again. He stops, but now these two, without even having to speak to each other, are both thinking of ways to kill her to make it look like an accident. Because they don't trust the system to actually lock her away for good. There might be a way that she can somehow manipulate this and actually get out of jail at some point, and then Crew would be in danger. Finally, Lowen speaks up saying, make her vomit, then cover her nose and mouth. It'll look like she aspirated in her sleep. And he does just that. Lowen can't watch, but she does eventually hear Verity take her final breath, dying in the same way she almost killed Harper all those years ago. They're both now struggling to accept they just killed this woman. Verity is very much dead. Rip. Actually, I don't know. He talks directly to her saying, she died in her sleep, okay? She just nods. His plan right now is to call the police in the morning and tell them he found her when he woke up to check on her. And they'll tell them that they all went to bed like normal. She says, okay. They agree to never discuss this night again. And of course they both agree to this by saying, all right. They go to her room. They don't sleep. They're just laying there wide awake as the night passes by, anticipating what tomorrow will bring. You know what we don't get to find out? What tomorrow will bring, because the next chapter is 7 months later. 7 months later. First thing we know, they're not in jail. So apparently they got away with killing her. But I have some questions. So Jeremy and Verity have a little bit of a tussle, and then he strangles her for a good little while. There would be signs that there was some struggle of some sort there. If any type of doctor looked at that, there would be some sort of sign of strangulation, some bruises, something that wouldn't have added up with her being bedbound, you know? So I don't know how he got away with this, but he did. And this seems like a giant plot hole to me, but fine, he probably should be in jail, but he's not. But like I said, they're not in jail, so they're just straight chilling right now. They're on a beach in North Carolina because they bought a beachfront house. Even though, like, a year ago now, he had a daughter that died of drowning because they lived by a lake. Seems like a weird choice to go when she is currently pregnant, like very pregnant, so she got herself fertilized just like she wanted, and Crew was still pretty young, but sure, live waterfront. I feel like there's some trauma that would make him not want to live there, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe people just get over that really fast. But today, when we're catching up with them, they're back at the Vermont house for the last time, so they can move the final things out before they sell the house. While Jeremy is carrying out one of the boxes to the car, Crew goes running past Lowen saying, I have to get my pictures from Mommy's floor. She's just standing there going, what? But he just comes running back down the stairs with his picture, hands them to her, and then goes running outside. Lowen rushes upstairs, and she sees the floorboard that Crew didn't put back quite right. She opens it, finds a small picture of the girls, a knife, and an envelope. She opens the envelope to find a long, handwritten letter from Verity to Jeremy. It starts off with saying she's hoping that Jeremy is the one to find this. Unfortunately, he wasn't. She's apologizing at the start of this letter because by the time he's reading this, she's probably run off with Crew. But they're chronic, so there's always heartbreak in their life, right? Stupidest term. It's still the stupidest term, I'm sorry. She starts off talking about how their lives were perfect before Chasten passed, but she can remember when it all started to go wrong. They were at dinner with her editor, talking about one of her books coming out soon, and he was on his phone reading an ebook like he normally does, even though he doesn't read his own wife's work. And listening to people talking about writing stuff bores him. Verity's agent, during this dinner, that Jeremy is not paying attention to, suggests that Verity tries antagonistic journaling, because she had mentioned how it was hard to stay in the villain's mindset throughout the whole book. So that's exactly what she did. She would go through big moments in their life and write them with a much more sinister, villainous point of view. Yeah, that's right. The autobiography we all thought we were reading was just her doing some antagonistic journaling. According to her, because she's a writer and it's easy for her to make this stuff up, and she had it all in one book like this because she was thinking about making a book teaching other people how to use this method. And she never thought Jeremy would randomly stumble across this manuscript and read it as her journal because he never read anything she wrote anyways. But Jeremy decided to read this one. Yes, he had already read the whole manuscript. He knew everything that Lowen had already read, and he thought that was truth already. And it clicks. When she handed him the manuscript, he didn't ask, "What is this?" He asked, "Where did you find this?" He knew it existed. She explains during this that Harper truly did want to go to the lake, and she took them, and they were having a fun day in the canoe, and she truly told Crew while they were tipping to hold his breath. And she helped Crew back because she knew that Harper would probably be able to get back, or at least hold herself afloat a little longer, and she could get her. But Harper sunk under faster than she thought because of that fishing net there. And she did spend all that time searching for her daughter until the police pulled her out. But when Jeremy that night accused her of doing it on purpose, that's when she wrote for the first time in 6 months. She wrote about Chasten's death, connecting it to Harper's death. And when she finished this, she printed it out and stuffed the manuscript in a random box, leaving the file on her computer though. Now she does admit that maybe writing this a couple days after her daughter died was a really weird thing to do, but hey, grieving hits everybody in really weird ways. Because she was up all night finishing this manuscript that she didn't even really plan to finish at this point, she was sleeping most of the next day, and when she woke up, she could hear the noise of Jeremy sobbing, wailing, coming from her office. And then she heard a crash. That's when she remembered her laptop was in there, open to that file. She runs in there, meaning to explain everything, but all she says is, "No, Verity, use a few more words, girl, please, you're a writer. That makes you look so much worse just saying no." But before she could think of saying anything else, he was dragging her out of the room by her neck so she wouldn't be able to talk if she wanted to. She passed out at some point and woke up in the passenger seat of her Range Rover. She had duct tape on her hands and feet and on her mouth. No seatbelt on either. And that's the moment she remembered the ending that she had just written last night, where she said she would drive herself into a tree if Jeremy was just going to report her to the police or leave her. Little did she know, by writing that last night, she just sealed her own fate. He could give the police the manuscript and then they would have no reason to question anything. So he crashed the car into the tree. She assumes he then placed her in the driver's seat and then walked all the way home by himself. But his plan didn't work out perfectly because she was still alive. Yes, at first she was in an actual coma. But when she came to, she still acted like she was in a coma to try to figure out what to do. But at one point, Jeremy walked in while she was slacking, and she had her eyes open. So she decided just to keep staring right at where their eyes first met, make it look like her brain wasn't working properly. So she continued doing this for weeks. She got back in the house. She was trying to get money into a separate account so she could take Crew and get out of here. But before she could do that, she needed to make sure the manuscript file was deleted and the physical manuscript she had printed out was burnt and gone. Luckily, when she got to her computer, she found out that Jeremy already deleted that file, but she couldn't find the manuscript. She was stuck there until she found that because that made her look so guilty. And then she starts talking about Lowen in her writing, on how she made it even more difficult because she was a night owl and going through all her stuff, and she was the one to find the manuscript. And then kept moving it around because she was reading it. Verity had to watch this girl take over her career, take her husband, basically take her entire life, as she was just trying to survive. But at the moment of her writing this, she's still confident that she's going to find a way out of this soon, and hopes that one day she'll be able to call Jeremy when Crew is grown up, and that she can explain everything to him, and maybe he'll forgive her. She doesn't even blame him for what he did to her because he was just trying to protect Crew. She ends the letter saying, "I love you even still, Verity." Yeah, so that means the creepiness of this whole book, the entertaining part of this whole book, was all fake. I feel so duped. So she made up a character and then had her character make up a character of herself, and that's what we were all forced to believe. I'll get back into talking about why the ending of this book was so disappointing to me, but let me fill you in on what Lowen does with this letter now. She is questioning if this is true because the way Verity writes in her manuscript is very realistic, and the Verity in that manuscript was very manipulative. So there is a chance this letter isn't even real. She can't guarantee that this letter is the real Verity. It may be completely fake as well. Because remember, Verity was a writer. She could make either of these realities up. But she can't ask her to get that cleared up because she's dead now. She knows at this point that Jeremy or Crew will come to find her soon, and she needs to decide what to do with this letter. So she goes to the bathroom, begins to tear this letter into tiny pieces. She throws some of these pieces into the toilet. She's eating some of these pieces, trying to destroy every part of this letter so it can never be found and connected back to them. Because if Jeremy ever read this, she knows he would never forgive himself. She doesn't even know if he would survive the truth, if this is the truth. She flushes the paper down the toilet, and at that moment, Jeremy knocks on the bathroom door, asking if she's okay. She replies yes, washes her hands, pulls herself back together. She opens the door with a smile on her face. He again asks if she's okay. She says, "I'm all right." He smiles and says, "All right, all right, all right, all right. Let's get out of here and never come back. And then they drive away. Jeremy will never know that he may have killed his loving wife because he read something she wrote as fiction. And now Lowen just gets to wonder for forever what version of Verity is the real Verity. And that's the end of the book. So you can believe that Verity was either a normal, loving mom who suffered a horrific death, or she was an evil person who suffered a horrific death. Here's my thing with this book. Yes, this is a fun twist, but after the shock wears off, I'm just kind of like, okay. Me personally, I think this would have been better is if when she and Verity were alone in the house, it switched like to a full horror movie. She had a knife up there, she could go crazy. I don't care if she was a loving mom. This girl was destroying her entire life, stealing her life. That could have been the thing that broke the camel's back. That's a saying. But Colleen over here just left us with maybe she was a good person. Who knows? I don't know. It just feels like all the buildup in this book was for nothing. Nothing. It was for a fun little payoff that was like, whoa, that's a fun little plot twist, but then it's like, okay. Me personally, I wanted more drama. I wanted more insanity. I think it would have been really cool if there was a way he wrote the manuscript. I mean, he kind of fulfilled the manuscript in the last little bit, but if he went full crazy mode during this whole thing and was plotting against both of them, that would be kind of fun. That would be kind of crazy, and I really like that idea. But no, at the end of this book, everybody just gets to live happily ever after Verity and the twins both died. Sorry, you guys don't, but everybody else is fine. I still think it would have been pretty easy for people to know that her and Jeremy got into a fight, but hey, that's just me. So overall, did I like Colleen Hoover's writing style? No. Did I find it entertaining? Sometimes. Do I like the ending? No. I'm annoyed. Was the romance good in this book? You know, the part she's known for, romance books? No. No, it was awful. Awful. And again, that's what she's known for. If you didn't know, the reason I did this to myself is because I made a deal that once I hit 10,000 subscribers, I would make a Colleen Hoover video recapping one of her books, and y'all chose this one. I fulfilled my end of the deal. But my plan now is to never touch another one of her books. Unless I'll make a deal with y'all that is so outrageous for me right now. If we hit 10K likes on this video, I'll read another one because I don't know how y'all are gonna do that. But if you do, fine. We can pick another book. We'll go back to this. But I think I'm gonna be okay. So now I'm gonna go read a book I actually enjoy, and hopefully I will see y'all in the next video. If you like recap videos or any sort of bookish videos, I also do some fun reading vlogs and trying to do some more sit-down content where we do like book hauls, maybe TBR videos if you want those. All that to say, if you like anything books, maybe like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment if you really want to, and I will see y'all in the next video after I get my sanity back. Bye, y'all. But she doesn't actually need to go to New York. She just stays in a random Airbnb that not far away. Car. Oh, I just put a gash on her forehead. Anyways, moving on. No, literally, I'm so sweaty. Please help. You want glowy skin? You want glowy skin and the wet hair look? Just have overactive sweat glands. I stink right now. Just so you know, I don't smell good.
Now, other people have pancreases that work. But no, you don't know how to do that.
So I have to suffer. Anyways, cut back.